free. Count it all joy, Charles is back online.
Welcome back to the podcast. Honored to be with you tonight. Email me your thoughts, freedom@equallyoakeshow.com. What we're witnessing in Spain is very reminiscent of what happened under Joe Biden. The 2020, what we're seeing is quite fascinating because we're seeing the response, of course, by the Moroccan or by the Spanish government as thousands of migrants surge from Morocco. Emergency request is actually denied, which is fascinating. But let's take a look at what we're seeing come out of Ceuta, Spain.
Chaos at the border of Spain's North African enclave in Morocco. This is a city called Ceuta. You're watching as thousands of migrants break through the fence and completely overwhelm the border police. Their video showing huge groups of people, mostly young military-age guys, cramming into inflatable tubes or arriving on shore in other ways, some of them wading in the water as they break through the gates to get to the other side. Sandra, this is reminiscent of kind of what we saw during the open border during the Biden administration through 2021, 2024, kind of similar to what we saw in Del Rio back in 2021. The socialist agenda, their platform literally says they want to abolish borders, abolish immigration enforcement, have complete freedom of movement. This is what it looks like in another country if they get what they want. Notice there is no resistance from the government whatsoever. These people are coming in without any obstruction. And if people don't know, Spain has a very left-wing government. Earlier this year, they did a big amnesty program for over 1 million illegal immigrants living in the country. They had 1.3 million illegal immigrants apply for that amnesty program between April and June. So that's what we call a pull factor, Sandra. They're looking for something like that. They know if they can just get their foot in the country, maybe someday that left-wing government will do another amnesty program. And you were just reading some of the wires. The locals want an emergency declaration. It sounds like
the ministry's saying no, they will not deploy military to the border.
Apparently they don't think this is an I mean, look at this. This is a total free-for-all.
It does feel like we are looking at a few years ago when you're reporting at the border here in the United States. This is happening right now. This story is breaking right now. And you're not just talking about hundreds, thousands of migrants are pouring over the borders as we speak.
Yeah, and again, I mean, just look here. Do you see any women or children? I mean, most people would call these folks so-called asylum seekers. These are all young guys just flooding into the country and overwhelming what, if any, border there is. It looks like there's just kind of a small barbed wire fence or something like that. But you can see the Spanish government was caught completely off guard here, and you have thousands of these men. I mean, it literally looks like, you often hear the word invasion, but it literally looks like one here. Look at that. I mean, you see the border fence there. They're all just going around it. And again,
the head of Spain's civil guard is calling this absolute chaos. In a brand new interview, he said, quote, "It's not possible to give precise numbers, but there are thousands of migrants crossing right now." He added that the border has totally collapsed.
Now, the White House bashed Spain's left-wing government after the border between Spain's North African enclave of Ceuta and Morocco collapsed Thursday. President Trump has long warned Europe that it would happen if they continue to implement far-left globalist policies, the same in which they're preaching here in America, the get rid of the borders, get rid of ICE, abolish them, in fact, and abolish the Senate, abolish the presidency. How do you think this is going to go? Now, look, I think America is in a position where it could change if they want it to change. I think things have to get bad in order for people to want to step up, in order to prevent any further destruction of America. And this is truly what we're seeing, what we're witnessing in Spain is truly disturbing.
And there are reported deaths as well of some of those that are crossing over by water. We're going to be on this. We're going to have brand new details as this story develops. We'll have those for you shortly. Be sure to like.
This is videos that are just really, you're seeing hordes and hordes, and BBC is only reporting that this is, just a couple hundreds that are pouring in, but hordes of military-aged men smiling and posing for cameras. You're also seeing some of these folks who are, let me show you other angles of this. because what you're seeing on, of course, these news broadcasts and these outlets, you're seeing only a portion of what is being reported or what is actually being shown online. And what is being shown online is quite staggering, because you see videos like this where just absolute chaos. This is
whatsoever. These people are.
This is the border here, flooding in. I mean, they can't stop it. I mean, what we're also seeing is you're seeing people that are trying to break into homes. And this is like 1 a.m. in Spain. You say, what is this? This is Spain. These are Moroccans who are flooding the border, Spain's border, and even the one of the leaders of Spain, the Spanish government, is saying that this is complete chaos. And let me remind you for a second here, because we have this video that was from El Paso. If you remember what happened in El Paso, there was this incident where they're rushing the barriers, and you see that they're just, well, let's just open it up, let them all come in. At some point, they start flooding in. They become overwhelmed. Look at that, dude. I mean, what are they going to do? They can't stop it. So if this is what we saw, and at some point, Joe Biden just completely opened up those borders and he let them all in. And this is what we're seeing. We're seeing all of these types of attacks on American citizens, and it's getting worse by the day in Spain, but of course in America. We're seeing tons and tons of attacks that are conducted by Islamists. And let me show you some more footage that is coming out from social media. All of this, I mean, let's look at, I mean, if the BBC and other news outlets are reporting that this is only hundreds of, just a couple hundreds that are pouring into the border. There's literally thousands of people here. Thousands. And so this reminds me of what we saw. This is like this very Crusades type of vibe here. And we know Africa and the nations in Africa, or the countries in Africa, are on the African continent, are majority Muslim, Islamic practicing faith. And this is beginning to get more and more scary as we see this. I mean, what will Spain do? The reaction that comes out of the government of Spain, well, we might not see much of a reaction. They can't control this. And so just going back to some of this B-roll here, read some of these articles here, because this is absolutely fascinating. So the situation is absolute chaos. This is the head of the association that represents Spain's civil guard officers in Ceuta, who police the border. It's not possible to give precise numbers, but there are thousands of migrants crossing, adding that the border between the two countries have, quote, totally collapsed, end quote. Chaotic footage captured hundreds of migrants swarming over the Moroccan side of the Taharjal border using inflatable inner tubes and flotation devices. Others smash through the gate and they run into the city. And so Maloney floats extraordinary measures as Spain's Ceuta overwhelms with migrants from Morocco. And so if you look online, what they're saying, well, they're seeking a better life. But there's more to that than what is being reported. And if you try to even do any type of research, that's really what it's going to spit out to you. They're just seeking a better life. This is not how you go about seeking a better life. You don't rush borders. You don't do this illegally. You just, first of all, you need to fix your own country. If it's so bad that you need floods of thousands of people to bum rush a border, then you got something wrong. You got something seriously wrong in your own country.
Thousands of migrants are pouring over the border.
And yeah, you're right. All men. You're pointing it out correctly. All men, military-aged men.
I mean, most people would call these
You're seeing maybe handfuls of women and children. Very minimal. It's like you're not seeing much of any women and children. Very rare.
Spanish government was caught completely off guard here, and you have thousands.
So you say it's not an invasion; it's a marathon held every 5 years. Oh, I didn't know that.
You often hear the word invasion, but it literally looks like one here. Look at that. I mean,
You say the Spanish conquest has just gotten reversed.
The head of Spain's civil guard is calling this absolute chaos. In a brand new interview, he said, quote, "It's not possible to give precise numbers, but there are thousands of migrants crossing right now." He added that the border has totally collapsed, quote unquote.
Yeah, it certainly looks like it. And for folks who don't know where this is a
Now,
small Spanish
I want to
city
put some
called
perspective
in North
to
Africa.
you.
It's actually in
If
Morocco, but it
Kamala Harris was elected into office, do you believe that our borders would be secure? Or do you think another instance like this, what happened 2 years ago in El Paso, would happen to America?
Start to see that there is no resistance whatsoever. I mean, at least in Del Rio back in 2021, when those 20,000 Haitians were crossing the river, similar images to this, you had some border patrol there. You had Texas DPS there trying to stop them. Here in Spain, there is absolutely nothing stopping these folks from wading ashore and climbing the fences. And Sandra, look at that in the background. I mean, there are thousands upon thousands of these men just flooding the country.
And there are reported deaths as well of some of those that are crossing over by water. We're going to be on this. We're going to have brand new details as this story develops. We'll have those for you shortly.
Now, one thing that I want to point, I'm pulling up just a ton of social media posts here because of what we're seeing in Spain, and let's see how we can even show this effectively. But this is what's happening. Neighborhoods, people are woken up in the middle of the night. Well, I mean, if they're not already on high alert, this is what they're seeing. And it's quite, how intense must this be? You're seeing people who are attempting to break into homes. And so there's multiple videos of instances like this happening. Again, here's more footage. I mean, people are drowning. Again, somebody pointed out, look, you're seeing maybe look what you see one woman out of a crowd of 100 men in just this image alone. I mean, how insane is that? Just going through. So here's people flooding into a home. More images, and of course, people are catching this from. Like, you only get the scale of how grand this is when people from far away are actually filming this. And this post just is sickening. It says, the saddest and most heartbreaking thing I've witnessed this summer, thousands of young Moroccans heading toward Ceuta. No one risks their life unless they believe the other side offers more hope than home. Yeah, because that's what it is. They're seeking a better life. Sure. This is absolute chaos. I mean, for those that are saying this looks like an invasion for sure, this is absolutely an invasion. Like, what else can you call it? I mean, this is, I mean, I have no words. This is an incredible sight to see. This very reminiscent of, and I'm going to keep repeating it, very reminiscent of what we saw in 2024, El Paso. Completely overwhelmed the Border Patrol agents. They couldn't do anything about it. And even then, these Border Patrol agents were ordered to stand down and let them in. And not only that, were they given phones? Were they given money? They were given hotels. Here's more, just another piece of this imagery here of somebody breaking into homes, people breaking in. It's just wild. I could only imagine the chaos in Spain tonight. So just to go over some more footage here, because I mean, this is, I'm just, there is a severe warning that this is a warning to the West, that if the West does not keep itself in check, and if we allow the democratic socialists in power in America, the Zoran Mamdani types, the Milat Kiros types, if we continue to let them stay in power or elect them into power, we're going to see the likes of what we're seeing in Spain in America. And I agree. Do it illegal. Do it legally. Follow the procedure. Can't keep. This is line cutting at its best. To the people that want to do it, look, you say, thank God I don't live in the USA. I want to. Where do you live? What country do you live in? Absolutely curious, because from what you're saying, this is not the USA. I'm not sure if you're confused about it. Maybe you're clear as to what's happening here.
De esta tremenda imagen de todas estas personas bajando, saltando y tocando.
So somebody said, always the Democrats' fault. It's not. This is not the conversation of this is the Democrats' fault. This is what they want for our country. These are the same people that have talked about the destruction of America, or they want to see America destroyed. And these are the means in which they will do it. fraudulent votes, no voter ID, sanctuary cities. If this isn't what America, if this isn't sort of cause any sort of, I don't know, how do I put this into words? This is quite incredible what we're seeing. And by the way, somebody's saying letting people in destroys a country. Letting people in this manner, if this is, to you, okay, like, oh, well, this is fine. I want to know where that sort of mindset comes in from. How is any of this fine? That people can just rush a border by the thousands, by the tune of hundreds of thousands. I don't know. Maybe this is hundreds, maybe thousands. How do we know how many people are even here? There were 500,000 that were let in already by Spain's government. 500,000. Now you have to see what kind of pressure that puts on the people who pay taxes to a country, especially in America. That you saw that the 6.7 million under Joe Biden that came in to America put more pressure on the American taxpayer to provide for the resources that we give to the migrants who came in, that were allowed to have EBT benefits, that were allowed to, or otherwise known as supplemental nutritional, the program for, it's called SNAP, the WIC benefits, other government benefits that they aren't allowed to have. This puts a lot of pressure on the American people. You say no border, no country. Exactly right. And we get into the realm of import the third world. You become the third world. And that is what the Biden administration wanted. And that is what Kamala Harris wanted. That is what a lot of these Democrats who say, well, get rid of borders. You have even the celebrities like, what's her name? The singer was talking about that we're on stolen land. Somebody remind me who she is. Billie Eilish. That we're on stolen land, yet made no comment when they said, oh, you should give up your land because it belongs to, whatever tribe. And so you say, why don't I talk about the cause? So if you're doing just immediate investigation into what's happening here, right? What you're seeing a lot of online is, well, this is just people seeking a better life. And so you see some articles that are saying the reason behind Thursday's sudden surge is unclear. But we know because of the governments and what they've allowed into their country, or how they've allowed massive amounts of migration into their countries, because they've opened up their borders. And so you see people that are leaving these countries and going for other places in order to put themselves into Europe. This is where they're heading. It says, but on Wednesday, an influx of migrants have attempted to cross, I think they successfully crossed the border of Spain by swimming. It says the Associated Press reported opposition party politicians in Spain and Europe pointed to Sanchez's pro-immigration stances as the reason for the surge, as I said before, referencing a policy his government implemented earlier this year that would give about 500,000 undocumented immigrants legal status in Spain. Their goal is to go into Europe because Europe is becoming a hotbed for the Muslim population. It says videos of large numbers of migrants appear to cross the Spanish border into Ceuta, went widely viral. And again, just more footage here.
Within hours, there were many more. Coast and Border Guard officers looking on as the numbers grew, intervening occasionally to rescue around 300 people in trouble in the water. Surrounded by Morocco, Spain's North African enclaves of Ceuta and Melilla are the only land borders between Africa and the European Union. An exhausted scramble onto dry land, and the joy of setting foot on European soil. Where dozens have died trying in recent months, authorities say hundreds have succeeded this week alone. Illegal migration into Ceuta and Melilla is nothing new, mainly Moroccans and Algerians skirting tight border security and scaling high fences to get in. These scenes reminiscent of May 2021, when 10,000 people arrived in a matter of days.
By the way, somebody said Mamdani closed the deficit, froze rent, is opening grocery stores at 30% cheaper, childcare, taxing billionaires, and building more housing. What you're looking at with what Mamdani is doing in New York is actually seizing private property. That's the reality of what he's been proposing since the very beginning, calling stuff free, which nothing ever comes free. And you're also seeing the fact that you say he's closed the deficit. He actually has deferred the debt. It's not closing the deficit. And you're seeing all of this, the lies that you're seeing. Let me see if this is the BBC, because of what they're reporting is just ridiculous. But I guess I backed out of it. Anyway, despite that, Mamdani is not doing good in New York. And even folks that are calling for him to be, for him to not be present at the 9/11 memorial. I mean, this is people, especially the Jewish population, who are now just starting to get it, realize that there is an increase in violence towards Jews, towards other races, Asians, Jews, people who are protesting the anti-Islamic protests that have been going on because of how violent it is getting in New York City. You're seeing IEDs being tossed into crowds just a couple of months ago. Then you saw the stabbings more recently in New York. Nothing is going good about Mamdani, and Mamdani is not going to admit that, that violence is increasing. Absolutely not. I mean, you saw the executive orders that he undid immediately following his inauguration. His allegiance is not to keeping America safe. His allegiance is not to the American Constitution. His allegiance is to the Quran. It's exactly what his allegiance is to. And on top of all of this, it looks like the world is flipping on its head. We're seeing the Anthony Fauci hearings that are going on, and he's just pleading the fifth on literally every single question. We're seeing the recent news about Donald Trump and the peace accords that he's trying to do in Gaza, where he successfully actually disarmed completely Hamas. But Elon Musk said on Thursday afternoon, the migrant surge is absolutely an invasion. This is what he said on X. Among several posts he made about the situation in Ceuta, he later shared a video purportedly showing the migrant surge, while adding the comment, "Looks like World War Z," after posting Spain's entire budget will be destroyed by illegal immigrants. And so it says they're not coming from any war. They're not fleeing from any war. This is a post on X. It says that it's an invasion. These are military-age men called by Pedro Sanchez's corrupt government to storm our borders so that they can roam the streets of Spain shouting, "Viva Pedro Sanchez." For every rape, every stabbing, and every slash to the pockets of Spaniards to keep them afloat, this is a direct culprit, the mafia boss deliberately calling in more hitmen to stay in power. This is what Joe Biden wanted to do in during his term. And so tens of thousands of Moroccan migrants are breaching the borders of the Spanish city. How can a society survive uncontrolled mass migration like this? It can't. Petty Spaghetti, you say they can't just invade a country like that. They have no manners. They don't care. And look, I wish everybody, I wish people weren't like this. But despite the fact they don't care about borders. They don't care about your borders. They don't care about your leadership and your policies. It doesn't matter to them. And when they go into your country, it's still not going to matter to them to follow those laws and those rules. This is why you see violence continue to increase in America. And this is why you saw massive amounts of fraud in Minnesota and massive amounts of fraud in California, in New York. And so what Elon Musk says here looks like World War Z. And so it says here in X, Spain's entire budget will be destroyed. A video posted on X by Santiago Abascal, leader of Spain's far-right Vox party, called the influx of migrants an invasion and accused Sanchez's corrupt government of desperately calling in more hitmen to stay in power. Says his video garnered more than 2.2 million views as of Thursday afternoon. And he posted another video. And this is that video of these migrants that are surging into the border. And they're headed to Europe. And they will invade, and they will continue to invade until they eventually take over. It's only a matter of time to where we see this begin to get completely out of hand. Until then, Spain comes a knocking on United States' door to help them out. I don't know, maybe NATO. I don't know how this is going to go down. What does this look like? Subscribe to the podcast. Email me your thoughts, freedom@nicoliokshow.com. You say, when you destabilize regions, expect blowback, rather. And so this, you say, sounds like a plan. This was all planned out because we saw, as what we were reading earlier, the report of Pedro Sanchez, who was allowing in 500,000 migrants to receive citizenship. And so Spain approves plan to give around 500,000 undocumented migrants legal status. This is, of course, according to BBC here and other news outlets that were reporting this. Spain's government has approved these plans. This is all planned. So Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez described his government's decision as both an act of justice and a necessity for Spain. But when you try to attempt to replace your population by importing migrants from other countries, you're not even the same country anymore. And Charlie warned Japan of this just before he passed. I'm going to play that tape for you right now, and I think it's quite the video to see concerning this. It really speaks into this very accurately.
Mass immigration was one of the defining issues that propelled President Trump towards election in both 2016 and 2024. But it was very simple. We asked a series of questions. In America, we said, do you want your hometown to be more people that speak Spanish or English? It was very simple. You see, a nation is also, the globalists seek to eliminate the 3 Ps by getting rid of borders, language, and culture. So a very simple question that I would ask here in Japan that I mentioned in my speech: do you want school children in Japan to learn Japanese? The language. Of course you do, right? But not Arabic. And we laugh, but you know what? People in London would have laughed 40 years ago in an event just like this. And yet more people are going to speak Arabic in London in 20 years from now than today. So you have to make it very real, very tangible. The problem is that Tokyo is so nice and that Japan is so great that you're almost in a place where it's very easy to be apathetic. Oh, this will never happen here. We've stood the test of time. Remember they said the sun would never set on the British Empire. I'm sure you've remembered hearing that before. It wasn't war that took down the British Empire. It wasn't any of the other conflicts. It was mass immigration that took down the British Empire. So you must enter with a sense of cautiousness, but also immediacy to communicate in real language, that in real words, that this can have a very serious impact on what people care about most.
I mean, how accurate is he concerning that? We're looking at a nation that is completely being invaded right now. And for anybody that's saying, well, that's not really what's happening, Charles, this is not an invasion at all. They are just seeking a better life. And Charlie was dedicated to speaking on this matter just before he was assassinated. And we see the government that is reaping its own, reaping what it sowed. So the Funcus think tank estimates that there are around 840,000 undocumented migrants in Spain, the vast majority of whom are Latin American. It says, this is a quote here, this is going to benefit a lot of people, give them access to work and to a better quality of life. And I think this is where a lot of people are getting this idea that they're seeking a better life in Spain. Well, this is going to quickly backfire on them when they realize that it's not about a better life. And so why this is dangerous to America is that if you look at what the DSA is preaching in the streets, preaching on the news outlets, talking about how they want to freeze the rent, they want to abolish the Senate, they want to abolish borders, they are going to destroy the country. And as I've been saying over the last, and I hope I've been getting it in your heads, that when they broadcast who they are, believe them. When they publish who they are, believe them. These are the Democratic Socialists of America. I want to know your thoughts more. Email me your thoughts, freedom@equallyyokeshow.com. And we saw these 6.7 million migrants from, this is a report from a congressional hearing from the Heritage Foundation, that we're talking about how much it costs per migrant for every American, or for how much it costs every American per migrant that has come into the country. So U.S., some 6.7 million new illegal migrants have entered the U.S. and have taken up residence since the start of 2021. If these policies remain in effect, the illegal alien population will continue to grow rapidly, reaching over 24 million persons by 2029. Net fiscal costs would rise to at least $169 billion per year. In addition, the Biden administration has continually promoted amnesty for illegal aliens. And this is what we're seeing also with Mamdani, what he wants to do with people who are seeking to come into New York City. So this is Mamdani himself. Let's go to this clip here. Don't take my word for it. Take his word. Because he's very good at speaking to the youth concerning this.
Clearly, these are programs for every single New Yorker. These are not programs that are going to ask the immigration status of any one of the children. All of those children are New Yorkers. They should all be enrolled in pre-K and 3K, no matter where they were born or where they come from. And we are also proud to be a sanctuary city. What a sanctuary city means is that we have policies in place, policies that have existed for years in this city, that deny ICE agents access into schools, hospitals, city properties, or even the properties of city contractors, unless those ICE agents can present a judicial warrant signed by a judge. We know that the vast majority of the time, ICE agents are not presenting that kind of documentation. If they're presenting any documentation, it tends to be an administrative warrant, and oftentimes there isn't any documentation even provided. So we want to make clear the rights of every New Yorker that they have, and very clearly.
Now, the same mayor that wants to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu, which is way out of his authority to do so because he is merely a mayor, a mayor who has this agenda in order to appease his fellow kinsmen, his the ones in which he met for that he got a lot of heat for. Let me go to these. Let's see here, because the conversation surrounding the 9/11 victims and Mamdani still planning to go. I mean, he's not reading the room here. These people don't want him there because of what he has done in past. We saw who he was meeting with. I'm trying to find the article for you because I think this is absolutely necessary to show you who his true colors are. Here's, for one, I want to show you this video in a moment here. This is Malat Kiros saying that America essentially deserved 9/11. And so, of course, she had to backtrack what she said, but I'm trying to find out where it is. And somebody's got to help me out here because Mamdani met with somebody who, boy, I can't remember what it was. Let's play Malat Kiros here. This is somebody who was backed by Mamdani and Bernie Sanders, the folks who are all about tax the rich and destroy America, essentially. She's the one that has talked about wiping her hands on the American flag when she forgot to get napkins. So this is Malat Kiros. This is who she is.
Your win, of course, comes just a week after two other Democratic socialists endorsed by Mayor Zohran Mamdani won House primaries in New York City. Politics are local. Do you see evidence, though, on a broader national scale that progressive voices are, in fact, gaining support?
Absolutely. I think what we're seeing right now is that candidates that are actually speaking to and fighting for the kind of policies that a supermajority of voters in our party support are winning.
So your win, of course, comes just a week after.
So this is why all of this that we're seeing in, we're tying all of this from what is happening in Spain to what could happen in America, because, and we honestly, truly, we dodged a bullet because of who was running. If we seem to have a memory hole of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, who would have been the president and vice president. I mean, here's Kamala Harris with a new, if you want to tax the rich, tax Kamala Harris. New $8 million Malibu mansion is located in a neighborhood with virtually no black residents, according to new report. Former vice president's new home sits in an exclusive Point Dume community where census data shows that the population is roughly 94% white and 0.2% black. Harris's choice of neighborhood is drawing attention in light of her past comments about the importance of living among other black Americans and her longtime focus on racial equity and diversity. And so going back to Mamdani here for a moment, critics have highlighted Mamdani's apparent defense of Yemeni American al-Qaeda leader Anwar and his criticism on the FBI surveillance of al-Awlaki, following the 9/11 attacks. At the time, al-Awlaki, I think it is, was an imam at the Northern Virginia Mosque, attended by two of the 9/11 hijackers after 9/11. I'm trying to figure out how to pronounce Awlaki, I think it is, left the United States and settled in Yemen, where he became an Al-Qaeda leader. I think I pronounced it wrong earlier. Al-Qaeda, I think it's Al-Qaeda. Leader, and gained attention for posting radical videos encouraging the killing of Americans. And so yeah, that's who Mamdani is. And they're pushing this agenda of socialism. And this is the Overton window. This is the discussion. When we get into this discussion of Overton window, we have to remember where this phrase comes from. And this comes from Joseph Overton. He originally called this concept the window of political possibilities, to describe how think tanks influence policy rather than just reacting to public opinion. The spectrum where the policies ranked from unthinkable to radical to acceptable, sensible, and eventually popular policy. And so you see this with climate change, you see this with migration, you see this with many of the Democratic talking points. This is their push for the Overton window concerning the Democratic Socialists of America, who are pushing the abolish, And by the way, Trump got a lot of heat for his comment on his run in 2028, and the media absolutely lost their minds. Let's go to this clip here.
Here we are. Here we are. In fact, when I'm finished, I'm going right back to the Oval Office, so I have to be doing okay. But we are all doing good together. That's why tonight, to show just how much I care about the press, and I want to save your ratings, I'm pleased to announce my intention to, and this is somewhat of a scoop, my intention to run for a fourth term as President of the United States. I will be doing that. I will be having an official, in fact, I think I have, I won 3 times. Now I'm going to do it again.
I mean, mind you, he's speaking to a room full of press.
Getting very good at running for president. No, I won 3 times, did very well the second time, by the way. It's a rigged election, but we don't have to talk about it.
So people are mad about this. MS Now went on a full trip here about Donald Trump making this announcement. They all felt, attacked by this. I mean, one of the MS Now hosts was just like bothered by this. And again, this is because Trump read the room of who his audience was. Of course, the media, who absolutely hates Donald Trump, completely apparently the room was silent when he made this joke. I mean, it's clearly a joke. But people are all, they're all flustered about this, that Donald Trump is actually being legit when he's saying he's going to run for, a 4th term, implying that he ran in 2020. And so people are just going mad about this. And of course, MS Now, they're all over this. And they were on this for the last, 2 days after this speech. It really got them butthurt, to say the least. But this is the MS Now host talking about this in a way that was just so unflattering. He was so bothered that he had to bring on special guests to talk about, how bothered he was. So let's go to this clip here.
As someone who was in the room, like I watched it on television with Jen as we were doing special coverage last night, and what I took from it was someone who didn't know his audience, right? Mm-hmm. I took from it, usually speeches are 10 to 20 minutes. I think Biden's longest speech was 20 minutes when he was president.
And by the way, you say do a little more homework other than Fox. I mean, I've only played basically B-roll from the beginning of the Fox clip. I'm playing MS Now. I'm playing C-SPAN. I'm playing a lot of other stuff other than just Fox. First of all, if you haven't been paying attention. And like I said, we're looking at both left-wing, right-wing media about both of these issues. I mean, really, of course, the ones who were completely bashing his speech here to a room full of press. Somebody's clearly butthurt here.
It was an hour long. Right. It was largely a rally speech at the end of the day, right? Like he kept going in and out as he does at rallies. It was also disturbing in a lot of places where the president of the United States made jokes, quote unquote, about seeking a fourth term, which implies that he won in 2020, spreading his election lies. And I'm curious how the things that I saw here watching it, how that played in the room full of journalists who cover this man.
They were crass. They were.
And he even said it, right? It's so funny you say such an incredible moron. Y'all are such incredible morons if you think that it wasn't trolling. He was trying to prove how stupid you libtards really are. And he said it, and he said it right at the beginning. He said, this is going to be a scoop. He knew what he was getting into when he was saying this. And he knew how many people would run with this quote unquote scoop and make it a story. And this is what MS Now did. And they're all booty tickled about this. And they want to talk about their feelings on live TV.
Offensive jokes. And there's an uncomfortability in that room. It was a much smaller ballroom than the initial Washington Hilton ballroom, maybe a fifth of the size. And I think it's important to note, you can hear in the audio some clapping and laughing. I mean, lucky if 10% of the room was laughing or clapping for him at any given time. And that's because essentially the entire cabinet was there. You had other Trump officials in there. You had Trump-aligned media in there. As for the actual journalists, those that cover the White House, those that cover Washington, there was just dead silence as he made mean, cruel jokes about our friend and colleague over at CNN, Caitlin Collins, made a crack at Josh Dossey, our friend over at the Wall Street Journal, and effectively mocked CBS News and the good journalists that exist inside of that newsroom by continually repeating CBS's David Ellison, his buddy and the owner of Paramount, that is the corporate head of CBS. And
it was how he expects the leaders of news organizations to behave.
It was an acknowledgement that he's picking up the phone and calling the head of the corporation.
Right.
There is supposed to be editorial independence. And inside of there, instead of celebrating what the founders put inside of the Constitution as a right, not a privilege, as a right, in order to hold those officials that are running our government, whether it be at the federal level or the state level or the local level, accountable. He was in there, in that room, effectively mocking, degrading them at the same time that he and his administration and his legal allies have filed numerous millions and billions of dollars of lawsuits and gone and effectively sought even subpoenas of journalists.
And he's saying that this is bad, that Trump's mocking and saying all these things. But in reality, when you look at what left-wing media has done to Donald Trump, they have continuously put a lot of blame on him for the economy, for the way that we're seeing America in its current position. And what this ends up doing to really radicalize those who absolutely hate Donald Trump to take action. I mean, he's had multiple attempts on his life. Even so, we're seeing videos from the IRGC targeting not only him, but his family members, looking through, like the play-by-play on how this would be conducted. This is from the Iranian state media on what they were pushing out there as propaganda. And this is what left-wing does. This is what the left-wing media does. They say these things about Donald Trump, say they do lies about elections. Again, MS Now went full-on TDS mode after his speech on the election, the records that he was releasing on the fraudulent elections. So this is what we're seeing also from Iran. And these are the things that spark the radicalists who believe they are doing America a good service to, I don't know, attack the president. The same 8647 types, the James Comey types. I mean, this is who they are.
تیم حفاظت ملانیا ترامپ مستقل از رئیس جمهور آمریکا عمل می‌کند. سرویس مخفی نیز برای او به جای رمز سنتی مرغ مقلد شناسه اختصاصی میوز را به کار می‌برد. علاقه شدید ملانیا به داشتن ظاهری هماهنگ با استانداردهای مد به بزرگترین نقطه ضعف زندگیش تبدیل شده است. ملانیا علاقه خاصی به فروشگاه‌های زنجیره‌ای لوکس خیابان پنجم منهتن نیویورک نظیر برگدورف گودمن و ساکس فیفت آنیو دارد. این مکانها می تواند برای عملیات آزادیخواهان جهان
This is their goal. Their goal is to destroy the West. That is in their charter. And for anybody that is saying, well, this is not what Islam is, this is Islam fundamentally. This is what truly needs to happen. And you saw one of the hosts from CBS saying, well, if you let them slip through the cracks, they'll become like this. They'll commit terror attacks like what we saw in Berlin, like what we saw in New York. You let them slip through the cracks. You have these Muslim leaders step up and keep their congregation in check, basically. If you don't do that, then you're screwed. And it's going to cause these violent outbreaks. But here's the AP reporting just 4 hours ago: Spain deploys military and to Ceuta after thousands of people breach Morocco's border and at least 9 die. They're still in the search for bodies, and there's probably more than just 9. Is that an accurate number? I doubt it. But it says Spain will deploy its military even after they mentioned that they were going to not declare this as a state of emergency. Now, this doesn't mean necessarily that it's a state of emergency just because they're deploying the military, but it says to restore order at the border, where they will then probably usher them in, slowly, calmly, instead of all at once as they are currently doing. They'll still let them in, most likely. The announcement came after local authorities in Ceuta asked the central government in Madrid for reinforcements to manage the border crisis that boiled over Thursday with large crowds of people breaching the border fence. Spain's government said it would send the armed forces to help the civil guard maintain, here's a quote, maintain security at the city of Ceuta. It also announced that Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez would join Interior Minister Fernando Grande Marlaska in a visit to Ceuta on Friday. The situation is absolutely chaos. Rashid Shbihi, head of the association that represents Spain's civil guard officers who police the border in Ceuta, told the Associated Press it is not possible to give precise numbers, but there are thousands of migrants crossing, he said, adding to the border had totally collapsed. Now, this is not hyperbolic language here. This is 100% true. You're seeing somebody who's actually saying the truth concerning the border, instead of just hiding it and saying, well, there's not a border crisis here. Nothing's going on. But nonetheless, what do you guys make of all this? Email me your thoughts, freedomanicallyogshow.com. Subscribe to the podcast. You say send them home. That's what they need to do if they don't want to create more problems for their own country. If they want to import, maybe do it the legal way instead of the, rushing the borders. Say immigration isn't the major issue, but illegal immigration is a major issue. Huge difference between the two. I agree. When immigration is done properly, you'll see that, and there's no shortcuts, right? People who actually want to not just immigrate, but of course assimilate. This is a big deal when you see people who are immigrating, they want to assimilate with the culture. And you see this with many people in America that are assimilating, that are learning the language, they're learning the culture, they're learning how to live amongst other Americans that have the same values that they do, to learn these values as to why they cherish their country, why they support the country. Many people who are, Hispanic, people who are Chinese, Asian, you name it. They want the best for the country. They don't want to see the destruction of the country. But when you see people that begin to segregate amongst themselves in their own cities, in their own neighborhoods, you see the segregation happening. And this is something that Theodore Roosevelt actually warned of, that people shouldn't segregate into their own communities. And I'll bring that quote up for you. And here we go. Let me see if I can find this for you. Yeah, so this is his quote here. He says, "In the first place, we should insist that if the immigrant who comes here in good faith becomes an American and assimilates himself to us, he shall be treated on an exact equality with everyone else. For it is an outrage to discriminate against any such man because of creed or birthplace or origin, but it is predicated upon the person's becoming in every facet an American and nothing but an American. If he tries to keep segregated with men of his own origin and separated from the rest of America, then he isn't doing his part as an American." I do want to play this clip of Charlie who asked the question, what is an American? And again, it brings out the point here very clearly as to what I think many of us believe here in the chat. What is an American?
2025, going into 2026, 2027, on the American right is one that we are totally unprepared for, which is what is an American. And most people look at me and they say, well, an American is just someone that has a U.S. passport. Zohar Mamdani has a U.S. passport. Omar Fatah has a U.S. passport. Ilhan Omar is a member of Congress. Do you consider that to be a fellow American? If America is just a passport, then America is dead. We are nothing more than a colony, nothing more than just paperwork. It's reverence for the Constitution. It's all in for not just the ideas, but the story. You need to come with humility that you are part of this project. If America is just a passport, then we are just a colony for Earth, a pile of wealth to loot. And that's how Somalis treat it. In the era of mass transportation and cheap airfare, this was inevitable, that mass migration would become the story of the 21st century, including the feeding our future scam and all this stuff. And I don't say this with any hate for the individuals. I'm just asking the very simple question. If you're not an American, that's fine. Go back to your place of origin. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to harm you. I'm not going to imprison you. Just go back. Hasta la vista. But we have a culture to protect. We have a country to love. No man can serve two masters. Christ our Lord said that.
So when you say, and you ask the question, you say, I was born in America and I'm still not assimilated. What's your definition of assimilation? Being a worker bee for the Epstein class? Well, for one, assimilation, I don't, you're born in America, you should assimilate, you should love your own country. First of all, you should fight for your own country. You should fight for the country that it should be, that it ought to be, what the founding fathers intended it to be. This is an American experiment, and this is founded on one of the longest lasting and living constitutions in history. And this is what the amazing celebration that we had concerning America's 250 about. This 250 years of a constitution that survived this long because this was a constitution that was given to us by these founding fathers who were not secularists. These people were indeed believers in Christ Jesus. Look at the Mayflower Compact. Before they touched down, they created this compact to help the reader help themselves understand why they were there in the first place. That is to spread the gospel of Christ. But the assimilation of somebody who comes into the country, you shouldn't have to assimilate if you're already born into the country. Nonetheless, if you're, I don't know, your family or your culture, whatever it is, if you're born into a Hispanic family, this is typical with family members of mine where they're born Hispanic and they are born speaking Spanish. They're born in the culture that they obviously have just born into. Catholic culture. You're assimilating with the Hispanic culture, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but you have to understand that you live in America. America is what Trump made by executive order. First of all, making English the standard language. You must learn to speak English. Read, speak English, and be able to really effectively communicate. Your assimilation also involves not just assimilating with your own people group, your own kind, your own kindred, necessarily, this is an assimilation to understanding your culture, your neighbors, and how you are to conduct yourself as an American, a patriot who loves America and what it stands for. So for the person, assimilation is for somebody who obviously is somebody who is seeking to either come into the country because of, a temporary protected status or whatever means. They should learn the language. They should learn the culture. They should learn the history so that they can be a part of this American experiment and push for its survival, fight for it. For those that are Christians, we should see that this is an opportunity to demand the welfare of the nation in which you are living. And what we're seeing here, I can't help but be drawn to the passage in Matthew, the book of Matthew. Jesus warns. He warns of what will happen in the last days. And a lot of people might not want to hear it. They're going to probably tune this off. But there are wars and rumors of wars. We're seeing that Saudi Arabia is now joining in the U.S. to strike Iran. The peace deals that are happening to disarm Gaza. We know that when peace and security are being proclaimed, that sudden destruction will then happen. See that you are not alarmed that this must surely take place, but the end is not yet, for nation will rise against nation. What are we seeing in Spain right now? This word nation is in the Greek ethnos, which you translate this to English, ethnicities. Nation will rise against nation. Ethnicities will rise against ethnicities. Kingdom against kingdoms. And there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. There will be also pestilence. What are you seeing in today's world? You're seeing pestilence all over. These food recalls. And people are blaming the Trump administration, saying, well, it's because he fired all these health officials. One, the experts were doing what they were saying they were doing. The expertise that they were providing was actually false because of what we saw during COVID. We really seen how much they were exposed by the falsehood in which they were preaching, how they were keeping Americans safe when really they weren't. And so it was a getting rid of the bloat of government officials. Somebody's asking, where did Jesus say illegally cross their borders? Exactly, he never did. Now, God in the Old Testament and Jesus both talked about being subjected under to or subjective to the government authorities. Talks about the Roman coin, whose superscription is on this coin. The person that was imaged on the coin was Caesar. He says, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, give to God what belongs to God. Say, bro is a self-hating Mexican. Absolutely not. I love my family, absolutely. But I love the country in which I was born. And if anybody wants to come into the country, anybody who wants to do it, and the people that are doing it right need to be rewarded. And I hope the Trump administration actually rewards those who are doing it right, who aren't cutting the line. We see those who aren't committing the fraud, those who are law-abiding, temporary protected status citizens. They need to be rewarded. Those who actually sought to do good from the very beginning when they absolutely could, instead of trying to do things the illegal way, trying to get around the bush, trying to do it their own way, with their own understanding. And so America and the population of America, we're tying all this to how this is a danger to America. Danger due to what we're seeing is what wanted to be done under Joe Biden and his administration. They wanted to import the third world because of, obviously, we're looking at birth rates severely declining in America. But a low birth rate due to extended periods of prosperity and low perceived external danger, this is according to Elon Musk here, saying, is the primary reason why that Rome and most powerful civilizations collapsed. Rome was very high birth rate, and went under extreme pressure from and low birth rate a few generations after Carthage, their last serious threat was finally destroyed. Rome fell because Romans stopped making Romans. So there's a whole lot here that we're witnessing, and we've been sounding the alarm here on this show. That's why I hope you subscribe to the podcast. What we've been saying about what's happening in New York and the warning that we're giving because of the increase in not only the attacks in what we saw in Berlin, but the attacks that are happening in America is dangerous. The attacks that are happening in America, and you see these people chanting or calling out Allahu Akbar, this is, and the attacks are increasing. And what's not being addressed by Mamdani are these attacks, in the sense that under his leadership, anti-Semitism is growing, violence is growing. And when they mention here, let me play this clip here, because this guest on this show, we played this on yesterday's broadcast, she openly admits that when you let these folks fall through the cracks, danger happens.
It's harder to find now, but it's still there, unfortunately.
How important is it to work with other leaders within the Islamic faith that are not extremists, because it constantly gets attached to this group of people, and everybody is not Abdullah Balat, who is now the person who, is suspected of having drove his car, killed a person, and injured 29 others.
That is a wonderful point, Jarika. I think it's so important that you made that. It is important for interfaith leaders, including leaders of the Muslim community, to come together and try to move forward and try to inspire people towards working together and living together peacefully and building community alliances, instead of kind of letting people fall through the cracks and move towards violence.
She said it, not me. But where are the, people will say, you're attacking Muslims, Charles. You're a bigot. You're totally Islamophobic. I mean, just go read their charter. And the Quran to this charter, it's foundational to their charter. But she said it right. Where are the imams? Why are they not condemning these attacks? Is it because it's necessary to usher in the 12th imam, the Messiah of the Islamic faith? But none of these news outlets are addressing the main issue, this type of lifestyle that we're seeing some of these attacks here in Berlin, what we saw in Berlin, and shouting Allahu Akbar is condemned by the Islamic faith. And this event was to be, stand on everything they believe, diversity, tolerance, and freedom. But if Europe becomes in total control of Sharia law, which we're seeing it more and more, and this is what we're seeing, the danger of what's happening in Spain eventually would head to Europe. And so, look, this is, and by the way, you're saying, bro, do you keep up with the imams? What you're going to see is from a lot of the Islamic faith leaders, where even I'm trying to find, it was a PBS little interview thing that they did about the little city that they want to build, the Islamic city in Texas. And Yasir Qadi, he's a very big, prominent Islamic leader And he was talking about, it was actually one of the other guys that were talking about the fact that anybody in the West actually doesn't know Islam. You ask them what it means, you ask them this and that, and they won't be able to tell you. And it's true, because what Islam is current in its current form in America is a very lukewarm Islamic faith. But you're seeing these outbursts of the Islamic fundamentalists that will act when they see a threat, or when this is fueled by the Islamic fundamentalism. They will strike when they believe, as one said in New York when they stabbed a person with a knife, saying, "Allah commanded me." And I think this other clip is very important to play here concerning this, because you go back to history and it really tells you, when you see what has happened in history and how this has played out, especially what we saw during the Crusades, this is a warning to what America could be if you allow it to happen. You want it to happen, go for it. It's all good. America is built on no favorability between any faith, even though these very documents that we have, where God is mentioned throughout the founding documents, the Federalist Papers, the Mayflower Compact, the Constitution, you see God is mentioned by even the explicit idea that humanity is given these inalienable rights. They're not given by government. Because if government can give you these rights, government can take away these rights. These rights are given to by God, who endowed us with these.
There's a correlation globally. It's not just New York City, but there is a message that's being sent that there's a particular religion that throughout its history has been violent and has been one that has advanced against civilized culture. We're talking about the 7th century religion of Islam, Allahu Akbar, Arabic for God is greater. And when you see this declared, what often follows is murder, death. It's tragic, but it's true. And until we realize that, we're going to be in trouble. But listen, I'm a Christian. Jesus preached peace, love, and forgiveness and grace. We've got an opposite worldview that is now permeating the United States, and it's a completely belief system that is contrary to our Judeo-Christian worldview. Trace, it's a very alarming situation, but it is historic.
Yeah,
and look, I think a lot of people, what they try to tie in with, they'll call me Islamophobic and all this. Look, the majority of Muslims are practicing Islam at a very lukewarm manner. They're not fully practicing it as it is fundamentally. And we're not saying that all Muslims are bad. Just because somebody's a Muslim on the street, we're going to hate them. No, that's absolutely wrong. But we're seeing the danger of what Islam is because of what it shows. It reveals itself by its own scriptures. Yeah, somebody says when you look at the fact that you say 1% of the U.S. population are Muslims, you say you are out of your mind to think there's a Muslim takeover. Yet Muslim families produce the most children than any other type of family. That they will grow at a rapid rate, and we see this happening in Britain. We see this happening in the UK. This is not. You look at the data concerning the amount of children that are born and the names of them. The number one name is Muhammad. Actually, I think the number one name is, let me see here. I think Muhammad comes in second or third. I think new reports are showing the numbers there in the UK. Actually, no. It says here, the Office of National Statistics has released the most popular baby names in England and Wales for 2025. Muhammad remains the most popular boy's name for the third consecutive year, while Olivia retained the top spot among girls for the 10th consecutive year. So, look, make that of, what you will, that information. You can deny what I'm saying, or it doesn't matter, whatever. You say in the UK, the Muslims are making plans for Nigel Farage. Is that who you're referring to? So the truth is Joe Biden and a handful of far left socialist nuts were running the country during the Biden menstrual cycle. Yeah, it wasn't Joe Biden. Joe Biden and the recently released audio files. This was prior to him being a president. I think this was during his vice presidency, what he was talking about with these classified files that he found downstairs, something like that. Some of which we haven't even covered yet on this show. There's just so much going on. And you're seeing a lot of these people, especially women, that are moving towards the Islamic faith. You're seeing this explode within young women who are looking to this Islamic faith, and they're saying, well, this is something that is going to give females more rights when they are deceiving themselves. I mean, you look at this activist who's speaking at a vigil in Berlin a day after the Islamic car ramming attack against the Berlin Gay Pride Parade. She says that she hoped the attacker was not a foreigner, but a white Christian person. And somebody actually asked Grok to see what it was, if this was an accurate translation. And it's quite funny. Let me show you this post here. Now, I'm not going to, you can hear the audio, I guess, if you want to, but I don't know. I wouldn't be able to translate it for you. So.
Diese Nachrichten zu bekommen, dass beim CSD ein Auto reingerast ist, ein Mann in einem Auto. Und was auch für mich schockierend war, ist, dass das Erste, was ich gedacht habe, war, hoffentlich ist es kein Kanake, hoffentlich ist es eine christliche weiße Person, aber es war es nicht. Und da zeigt sich dann wieder Intersektionalität. Wir kämpfen nicht alle die gleichen Kämpfe, aber wir sind füreinander da in Momenten wie diesen. And that's beautiful.
And so somebody asked, hey, Grok, can you please translate this video from German to English? The speaker, the activist here, said in German, and it quotes whatever she said here, and it says, I had hoped that the attacker was not a foreigner, but a white Christian person. And they asked why, any idea why she would hope that. Grok said the activist likely hoped the attacker was a white Christian to align with narratives that attribute anti-LGBTQ plus violence preliminary to domestic conservatism or Christianity. In this case, the suspect was a German-born man of Lebanese descent with Islamic radicalization, ISIS ties, and the attack was officially described as Islamic terrorism, consistent with documented opposition to homosexuality and parts of that ideology. Such preferences often reflect a reluctance to update assumptions when facts point elsewhere. And so this idea that Christianity is as Hillary Clinton put it, these white Christian males that are let me see if I can find the clip here. This is wild.
And I'm proud of the fact that we have always been a work in progress. You know, we haven't gotten to the more perfect union, and we fought a civil war over part of it. And people have been protesting, you know, for hundreds of years that, you know, things were not as they should be, given our ideals and how we should be moving toward them. So I think that's what makes us so special as a country. And the idea that you could turn the clock back and try to recreate a world that never was, dominated by, you know, let's say it, white men of a certain persuasion, a certain religion, a certain point of view, a certain ideology, is just doing such damage to what we should be aiming for. And we were on the path toward that. I mean, imperfectly, lots of, you know, bumps along the way, but I agree with you.
Path to destruction.
We're on the right trajectory.
It's really what it is. They were on a path to destruction. They were almost there. They almost had it. They almost had it with Kamala Harris. And she's leading the polls. Albeit she's leading the polls. Let me see if I can find these polls. Yeah, look at this. This is a national polling average race to the White House. Kamala Harris coming in at top. And Gavin Newsom, despite what he has shown, how incompetent he is in California, he's at 16%. Buttigieg, however you want to pronounce it, 11%. Ocasio-Cortez sitting at 10%. John Ossoff, Shapiro, and Mark Kelly. And we may see another run for presidency for Kamala Harris, which, hey, let's stick her up at the top. She'll do great. She'll do great. So look, these are 2 years prior. You still got to see, you know, some of these folks who are going to, maybe even Democratic socialists who will run, who will really catch the eyes of a lot of Democrats. And so far, we have most of these folks that are more of the celebrity types of the Democratic Party because of who they are and what they've done and the type of stuff they've been involved in. And yeah, look, 2028, it's going to be a crazy turning point for America. 2026, nonetheless, we're seeing a huge, we're seeing a preliminary results coming in for the fact that, you know, the House may still be kept in for the midterms, which is a good sign. So, all right, guys, email me your thoughts, freedominicleokshow.com. Subscribe to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here tonight, and God bless you. And keep it locked here. We're going to be covering a lot of the news that is coming in from, of course, from Spain and what else is happening here in America domestically, and all of the stuff that will be shaping up for the next, for the midterms. Midterms are shaping up to be really heavy on the Democratic Socialist side. And this could be a danger for America if we allow this to continue on. And again, they will put themselves into positions in power in the Congress, in the Senate, in the House, wherever, right? In places like the governor, in places like Attorney General. They want these positions because they want to affect change at the lower levels, which eventually they can affect change at the higher levels. They can start small. They can play the long game. This is the game that they're willing to play, so long as they have the time to play it. Look at what Bernie Sanders said in an interview with Brian Tyler, saying what Mamdani did in New York, we want to do across the nation of America. He said that those are his words. So nonetheless, God bless you. Thanks so much for being here. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
strong men built the West and won the wars and built the building that we're in right now, and without strong men, then you all of a sudden see civilization unfold upon itself, and we're seeing that happen in real time.
Charlie Kirk is the founder and president of Turning Point USA, a prominent conservative youth organization with a presence of over 2,000 high school and college campuses across the United States. He served as the chairman of Students for Trump, which focused on mobilizing young voters during the 2020 presidential election. Kirk is the host of the podcast The Charlie Kirk Show and maintains a social media presence following with high levels of engagement across all platforms. So please welcome me for introducing Charlie Kirk. Welcome.
Thank you. Honored to be here.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to go straight into it. So some of my first questions are regarding immigration. So you've argued the 14th Amendment policy, 14th Amendment has been misapplied to undocumented immigrants. And if so, you oppose birthright citizenship. And if you do oppose birthright citizenship, what alternative system would you propose for determining who is automatically a citizen? And how would you address the risk of creating a legally precarious or stateless class of US-born children?
Okay. It's a good question. And first of all, thank you for having me, and great to be here, everybody. So if you don't, I was amazed. I was at the other place yesterday, so we hope that you guys are going to be even better, right? We'll see what happens. I was amazed by how much you guys care about American politics and you know about our system of government. So if you don't know, I'm just going to kind of just give you a quick overview. So we have the 14th Amendment. It was one of the post-Civil War amendments. It's been used to applied for a lot of different things. One of the ways that it's been debated is this idea of birthright citizenship. So birthright citizenship is that currently in America, you could fly from Beijing, China, 9 months pregnant, land in San Francisco, go to the hospital, and your baby is a full U.S. passport holder, full U.S. citizen. No reservations, no asterisk, nothing at all whatsoever. So that is what's called birthright citizenship. Most of the rest of the world doesn't have it. I don't even think you guys have it here in Britain, where you could just come into the country and have a baby and you get a passport and you become a full citizen. So the question is, does the 14th Amendment apply to the children of non-citizens? Well, the Supreme Court ruled in the late 1890s in what's called the Wong case that it does apply to the children of permanent residents. Since 1890, I think it was 1898 or something similar to that, it has not yet been decided or adjudicated whether or not illegal immigrants or non-American, non-permanent resident, non-US passport, non-green card holders and their children can get birthright citizenship. I think that we should join the rest of the world, including your country, and not give just full US citizenship for people that come on birth tourism to the United States.
Thank you. So then what is the alternative system you propose? Because I know the UK has a similar system, but I think Ireland still has kind of like the birthright citizen state and stuff like that. So what would be your alternative?
Well, to the birthright citizenship question, just get rid of it.
And replace?
Well, there should be no replacement, meaning that if you want to come to the United States of America, apply like everybody else and get in line, and you don't get to show up pregnant and have a child, and that child becomes a full US citizen.
So in terms of situations where like the parent has been an undocumented immigrant for a couple of years or decades at this point, and they're having children, where does that leave the children? Do we then create like a state of like basically people who don't have kind of like documentation?
Yeah, yeah, that's correct. They do not become U.S. citizens. So our belief is that we should deport everyone who is in our country illegally back to their country of origin. Something that finally your Labor Prime Minister is waking up and saying he wants to do. I hope he actually does it. But it's quite a concept that you're not allowed to come into a country unless you're invited. And so we in the United States just won a popular vote election, a popular vote majority and electoral vote majority under the idea that we want mass deportations. So if you are in our country illegally, the United States, it is our plan to return you back to your country of origin as a full family unit.
Okay, thank you. And then talking about kind of the idea of mass deportation and basically Trump winning an election and that, we've seen recently that he's been expediting the refugee applications of white South Africans, claiming they are victims of racial discrimination. Considering what you've just said about kind of mass deportation being the view, What do you think justifies the embrace of white South African immigrants, white South African immigrants and their temporary legal protections that Trump is granting them?
Well, for one, one of the leading political parties in South Africa is saying that we should kill the Boer over and over again in a endorsed chant from the top leaders in a political rally saying that we should go kill the white South African farmer. You can look at videos of crosses that will fill roads for miles of white South African farmers that have been brutally murdered in their home, basically because of what is called land reparations at worst. So this is at best, and then there's another word that we could use for it, which we'll see if it actually qualifies for that as time goes on. But yes, I mean, this is a group where a government has decided that we are endorsing the worst and most venomous form of racial hatred against white South African landowners, and they're fleeing appropriate asylum with the United States. Hilariously, it's only been like 25 people that have received this asylum, and the American leaders have been completely okay with every other type of person on the planet to be granted asylum. Like 15 million people they want to grant asylum, but when 15 white South Africans want to show up to the United States and have asylum because there's actually an endorsed mantra and chant to kill them, all of a sudden there's a major issue. I wonder why.
Thank you. So then, considering that, so if it applies to, for example, Nigerian Christians being killed in Nigeria and other kind of like world atrocities we're seeing across the world where people are in a vulnerable position, you would agree then that they also should have their applications?
It can. Again, it's a case-by-case basis. And if one of the leading political parties in Nigeria, whether it be the Muslim or the Christian faction, was outwardly saying we must kill the Muslims or we must kill the Christians, we're a very generous country. We're willing to look at all the cases associated. I happen to know the South African one better than the Nigerian one. I mean, Nigeria is the most populated country in Africa, so it's not unreasonable that something like this could happen. But the United States of America is a generous country. We've been known when it meets the criteria that we are a place that you can find safe refuge. The problem is our asylum process has become a scam the last 15 years where people from countries just that have high crime rates are able to say that I am fleeing violence to come to the United States of America. Well, guess what? The United States is also very, very violent. You go to Chicago, go to Philadelphia, it's not exactly a good cause or good claim. And that is in a bad way. That is a way where our compassion as Americans is being taken advantage of for an ulterior political motive.
Thank you so much. Moving on slightly to a different topic, which is abortion. Currently, there is a woman who's been declared brain dead in Georgia and is being kept on life support because the state's restrictive abortion laws that ban abortion after cardiac activity is detected, generally at 6 weeks. So I want to basically ask you, your thoughts on that and how you think kind of like the pro-life arguments apply.
I'm having a hard time hearing it. So you said there's a woman in Georgia that's on life support because she was not able to get an abortion?
So she's being kept on life support because she still has this baby in her womb. And
she has a what? I'm sorry.
She still has this baby, but she's like brain dead, completely brain dead.
She still has a baby?
Yes, but she's being kept on life support just because of this baby. And this is just due to the state's restrictive abortion laws that ban abortion after cardiac activity is detected.
So I don't know enough about the case. Why is she on life support? Is it a pregnancy-induced ailment or is it unrelated?
Separately ill, but the idea is she's completely brain dead. So basically the only thing that's keeping her alive is this machine because of the baby due to restrictive abortion laws.
Yes, I mean, that baby is going to be able to live, praise God. And that mom will now, her parting gift to the world will be another life. I think that's beautiful. Unless there's an element of the case I'm missing, like she has pregnancy-induced sepsis or there's something related to the case that I'm not aware, because I do believe in the exception for the life of the mother, but that doesn't sound like that's what this case is.
So to be clear, like the mother is dead, and like she's
well, hold on. How is she
alive.
dead if she can?
She's being kept alive.
Hold on a second. How is she dead if you can gestate a baby?
She's brain dead.
But she's not dead. Hold on a second. She's brain dead, but let's re-examine what being dead means. How can you actually have a baby fully develop within you if you're dead? And that's what's always so interesting. People that are called dead, they could still get pregnant. Women who are dead still menstruate. They still, when they are stabbed, their adrenaline levels go up. And again, this goes back to the fundamental question of what is a human being and when does life begin? And it would be very interesting. Shouldn't the question also be, I don't know what her wishes are. Do we know her wishes or not? Or
Well, the thing is, again, she's brain dead. She can't give us her wishes.
Well, no,
but her
I'm saying
family,
though, but hold on a second.
Her family
Again,
have made it
she
very
could have
clear.
prior to this of the pregnancy said, "I want to do whatever is possible to save my baby." So that's not a dumb question.
Yes,
okay?
but I'm not saying it's a dumb question.
Okay, so we don't know. So therefore, since we don't know her wishes, we should yield on the side of life. And if that baby is able to survive and the mom dies, I mean, that is of course the moral thing to do.
Surely, considering her family is kind of like, please have been to basically save her first, which is obviously not possible anymore. But
Well, I'm sorry. So the family wants to save the mom, but you said she's brain dead, so
Yes.
there's no way to save her.
So my point is
she's
before-
simply just a vessel for a life.
Well, do you think that's okay for women to just be vessels for life?
No, of course not. In this extreme case, though, which is a moral question of if you terminate the mom, the baby dies. If you can keep the mom, quote unquote, alive long enough, another life enters the world. That is a morally great thing for humanity to be able to say another life comes into the world when someone who is brain dead would otherwise have no contribution to the species.
But what if this continues when we see more restrictive abortion laws in different states?
Well, we're not. This case that you're saying actually proves my point that she doesn't have agency, she doesn't have consciousness, so we should yield on the side of the protection of the human being in utero.
So here's my point. The reason why we have this case happening in the first place is because of how restrictive the abortion laws. So here's my point.
Abortion should be banned in the United States of America, and we're well on our way to do that.
Well, so
yes, correct, completely, except for the life of the mother.
Okay, so in the exception of the life of the mother, you agree that that should be. But in this case where we basically have these women being vessels as brain dead individuals, and we're continuing to carry these pregnancies to full term, do you think this is like morally okay in terms of what if the woman says no beforehand, she doesn't want to be carried as a
I guess
vessel?
the question I would pose to you or anybody else, what is the moral difference between the baby and the womb and her? One is older? Are they not both human beings? I mean, why all of a sudden that we're able to say that she's older and more developed that you can eliminate the smaller being? Why is that okay? Under what moral standard it is okay to eliminate beings smaller than you or because that you've been developed more? In fact, we should, as humanity, say, under this very extreme case, and thank you for bringing it to my attention. I'm actually going to talk about it because it might be used as like a way to like put us on defense, but in some ways, it shows that we value both human beings. That mom who might not have nothing else to give, again, the last thing that her body can actually do is to have another life, her offspring, enter into the world. And of course, I will defend that because every human life is exceptionally and uniquely made, and we believe in universal human equality, the first of which is life.
Okay, thank you. So some other abortion-related questions, kind of like touching on what you said. You've kind of talked about, obviously, the safety of the mother being like the only kind of like bar in which you think abortion should...
Correct.
Yeah. So what about abortions in cases of sexual assault or rape?
Yeah, so again, let's just say I have two ultrasounds here. One of the ultrasound is a baby that is conceived in rape. The other one is from a loving marriage. Do we know which one is which? So they're both human beings and they both deserve human rights. Someone in this audience was conceived in rape. Do you know who? Tell me. Do they look different? Do they get less rights? Are you not able to have free speech rights because you're a rape baby? No, we believe in universal human equality regardless of how horrific or evil the method of conception is. That is what built the West, and I will continue to defend that.
So then what happens in cases when the baby that is a product of rape or sexual assault is mistreated, is abused?
That's a separate issue. There's plenty of babies that are in loving monogamous marriages that are mistreated and abused. Separate. There is no correlation. There's no moral justification to say that I think or I even have data that baby will be abused or mistreated, therefore murder is okay.
I mean, there is correlation, I think. It's very clear when they've been perceived in very, very horrific situations. The mother specifically as well is obviously, in terms of mentally, the impact they have on her, that still the mother has to raise that baby all the way till 18 years old.
Still not a justification for murder. And if you think that abortion is just a medical procedure, a cosmetic type intervention, no different than getting plastic surgery, women have regrets after abortion, they have psychological trauma. Again, the question is, do we defend human life universally as a statement? And if the question is, I'm gonna just kind of, well, I can eliminate the smaller life because I have regret of a sexual encounter I had, then I find great question with that. On the rape thing though, to your point, it is the hardest thing that we have to defend on its surface. Rape is awful and terrible. Rapists should be castrated and put in life for jail the rest of their life. The more important fundamental question is, under what moral standard it is okay to do something evil after an evil act when a life is eliminated? One of the most powerful things I get to do is go down college campuses. And all the time I meet young kids that were babies, that were scheduled for abortions, that were conceived in rape, and they are full citizens of America that are flourishing and doing amazing things. And I believe that we should get back to this idea that all human beings are equal regardless of how you entered the world.
Thank you. Then considering, obviously, you've talked about how we need more abortion restrictions, but we're also seeing low birth rates in America and also in the West as a whole. How do you think they interact with each other, and do you think they're related?
I'm sorry, just to make sure I'm hearing the question, and it's not your fault. It's the acoustics. You said falling fertility rates and abortion rates.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. So we actually already have a window into this. In Texas, we have completely abolished surgical abortion. You could still do an at-home abortion, which is mifepristone, I think is what it's called. And birth rates are up. About 200,000 new babies net over the last 18 months in Texas versus the years prior. And so, yeah, I mean, in the UK and America, we wouldn't need as many third world immigrants if we didn't kill our babies all the time in the womb.
Thank you very much. My next question is slightly a larger picture, considering not abortion, but just the treatment of men and women. So what do you think the role of red pill media is in the men's rights movement? And what are the implications you think it has for women?
Okay, so I'm sorry, you said that what is the role of right-wing media in the men's rights movement? Yes.
Red pill media.
Sorry, I'm not trying to be...
No, don't worry.
I want to make sure I answer the question.
So
what is the role of right-wing media in the
red pill media?
I'm sorry, okay, red pill media.
Yes.
What
in the men's rights movement.
What is red pill media?
So, I'm trying to think of a more broad definition.
Can you give me a name?
Think like Joe Rogan, your Andrew Tate.
Joe Rogan's awesome.
Great.
What's wrong with Joe Rogan?
I didn't say there's anything wrong.
No, I know. What's Joe Rogan's role? He helps save civilization. He's a bow hunter. He's fun.
Okay. My more general point is very much content that's being produced right now regarding men, how they act in terms of very toxic masculinity, how they treat women. Something we've seen, at least in the UK, was the show Adolescence came out recently.
Yeah, which was a complete fiction, by the way.
Talking about...
What was it based on?
Talking about the kind of the way media interacts.
I mean, it's a mythology no different than Lord of the Rings. Like, there's no basis for this.
I think there's a slight difference.
Well, you're right. The difference was that the main character was actually an immigrant, not a white person. That's right. That's the one thing they got wrong.
So is it a complete fiction, or is it...
Yeah, it's a mythology. I mean, if they would have talked about how it was like a third world Arab young kid radicalized by Islam and then decide to go stab somebody, then they would have gotten more correct in that Netflix special. But yes, the point that I think, and by the way, this kind of scold, not you, you've been great, but like that ridiculous, the head of the Conservative Party being scolded, have you not watched Adolescence? What are you talking about? As if it's like some sort of like you have not read the catechism of like the core faith. Have you not experienced the full Eucharist? It's just like preposterous. And so, I mean, sorry, you're asking a good faith question. Like, what is the role of right-wing media? Of course, they're toxic masculinity. There's a war on men in the West. We as men are here to be protectors and defenders and providers. We should treat women with total dignity and respect, of which I'm a proponent of men. I know this crazy Christian idea of saving yourself until marriage and not having sex until marriage. I believe abstinence is not talked about enough. In fact, you want to dignify women, all of a sudden don't have a bunch of hookup sex on Tinder and every app that you can get your hands on and start acting like men. And so, insofar that any media is talking about using women as objects or as ways to try and sleep around a lot, I reject that. At the same time, I am a traditionalist where I believe most, not all, but most women of the West deep down desire getting married and having children and having a husband who loves them. We have a lot of sex in this society and we don't have enough love in this society because love comes from connection, it comes from the soul, it comes from something deeper, not just an orgasm.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your answer. Just another follow-up question on that in terms of red pill media, specifically stuff like Andrew Tate's content, which I think is probably on the edge and kind of the fringe of it. What are your thoughts then in terms of when it kind of pushes the limits?
Yeah, I don't know Andrew. I've never met him. I mean, he has a certain following and he has a certain approach. I've seen some of his content. Some of it I like, some of it I disagree with. I can only speak for what I believe, and I think that's fine. I mean, if there's a video or a statement you want me to respond to, I can do that. But more broadly, I think that the men of the West have been infantilized for too long. We have the lost boys of Peter Pan that are basically watching porn all day long and doing drugs, and they don't have to go on an adventure to mature themselves. They have nothing significant to aim for. And part of that needs to be challenge. Young men need challenge. They need something that elevates them above their primitive state of just indulging the flesh. And that means an entire society that knows that young men need other men to communicate to them in a way that is not that you're the worst, most awful thing ever, because we see the men of the West checking out. And I would love during our Q&A portion if somebody thinks that's a good thing or a bad thing. And if you think it's a good thing, at least you are morally consistent. If you think that the men of a society checking out is a good thing, well, you are getting your goal, because that is what is happening. We have like this generation that has completely disappeared of young men, particularly in my country, in the middle parts of America. I don't know if the same trends are here in the UK, but I do know that it is intercontinental, this trend. We see it across Europe and across the UK, of this hyperfixation on feminism and female empowerment, while also not acknowledging that strong men built the West and won the wars and built the building that we're in right now. And without strong men, then you all of a sudden see civilization unfold upon itself, and we're seeing that happen in real time.
Thank you so much. Going to move on slightly in terms of topic area. What is your stance on Project 2025?
It's going great.
To what extent do you think it's feasible in terms of all the actual clauses within it? And
in all fairness, it's a 1,200 page document. I haven't even read it all. But the parts about deconstructing the administrative state, there's an entire chapter of Project 2025 that our former president, who wasn't even president, he was brain dead, and you all know it's true, and the media covered up for it, and they lied about it, and they smeared all of us that acknowledged it and knew it. He did not even know the year he got elected. That is a fact. You can go listen to the Robert Hur tapes, and the leader of the United States of America did not know the year that he got elected. And an aide had to insert, be like, no, sir, you were actually elected in this year, not that year. He didn't know the year that he left office as vice president. He thought that his son died in combat, not of cancer, in an official testimony to the United States government about a criminal investigation. So we had an administrative state running our government. So about Project 2025, Joe Biden and the Democrats and some very weak Republicans told us the border is a problem that cannot be solved. You just have to get used to the fact that 2.5 million people come into your country every single year. There's nothing you can do. In Project 2025 and other documents, there's like, no, we can operationalize the border. We're going to do remain in Mexico, all these other details. So in April, 60,000 people last year came across the southern border illegally. 60,000. Last April, this one, 6. President Donald Trump did not need Congress. He didn't need a new act of legislation. Turns out we just needed a new president who knew what to do and actually cared about sovereignty. So I think the project's going great. I don't know all the details, but I'm thrilled that America has its mojo back.
Thank you very much. My next question is something you said regarding Obama. You described him as a failed cultural revolution agent.
What did I say? A failed what?
Failed cultural revolution agent.
Oh, that's right. That's correct.
Yeah. Can you please clarify what you mean by the statement and your position on basically DEI more broadly?
What was the DEI part?
So can you clarify, A, what you meant by that statement about Obama, and then your position on DEI more broadly?
Oh, okay, got it. So I'll do the second one second. Okay, so yeah, Obama's revolution, partly in his book Dreams from My Father, which I encourage you to read, was that he thought that he would bring forth a great awakening and a reconfiguration of America. And he thought that Hillary Clinton was like an automatic to become president. They thought they were going to stack the Supreme Court with 3 new Supreme Court justices. And his revolution never actually hit its final mark. Instead, President Donald Trump won in 2016. We got 3 Supreme Court justices. We were displaced from power from 4 years. And now President Trump is back on top. And almost every one of the core things that Obama ran on or defended have fallen out of popularity with the American people. And so you can like Obama. I actually think there's plenty of things you can like about him. He's very talented. He's very charismatic. He's very good on his feet. He respected the White House. He respected the Oval Office. There's plenty of stuff. Like, I'm not like an automatic hate Obama guy, but you must just be factual. Like, his vision, what he wanted to do for America has failed. It's failed in the popular vote majority. It's failed in our public opinion polls. Young people, which used to be Obama's greatest constituency, college campuses were all on fire for Obama. Well, young people actually moved the most towards Donald Trump this last election, and President Donald Trump won the youth vote in Michigan and several other battleground states. As far as DEI, my stance on it, I'm very much against it, and they say it stands for diversity, equity, inclusion, but it really stands for didn't earn it.
Can you elaborate more why you think it didn't earn it?
Yeah, I mean, so DEI is a very innocuous term that can be applied in many ways. So affirmative action is an extension of DEI, and they're kind of like cousins to each other. So there's 4 elements to this. There's critical race theory, which is the legal, it's kind of like the philosophical theory. We could talk about it if you like. There's affirmative action, which is most definitely in practice, if you will. And then there's disparate impact theory, which has been the predominant legal theory in the United States to justify the U.S. Civil Rights Act, and it's downstream tributary effects. And then there is diversity, equity, inclusion, which I think the best example of DEI can be how it's kind of taken over the corporate workforce. So there's 2 ways I could look into it. Number 1, DEI demands that you must hire these new ridiculous diversity departments for no reason whatsoever that weigh down costs, that are basically speech police internally of our major companies, that make it a less desirable place to work, and honestly less productive and less likely for us to be able to compete against the Chinese communists. So I could talk and I can give you examples on that if you'd like. The other part of this, though, is that you could insert, I don't know how deep you want me to go into this, but fundamentally DEI is about race quotas in America. I don't know if it here is in the UK. And so when you have a quota and you want to reach that quota, you will then have to relax the standards of excellence. When you build a big organization, you say, this is what we stand for. Harvard, for example, used to stand for truth, veritas. Every organization must have a telos, it must have something you aim at. And if you aim at anything other than excellence or meritocracy as a company, then you will compromise those things. If all of a sudden you want to be equitable, well, maybe that company will not be that good anymore. And we see the slippage of our excellence here in the West, where if we get away from excellence and meritocratic type undergirding philosophy and towards other type substructures, I think it's a remarkably dangerous proposition.
Thank you very much. Again, moving slightly, you spoke briefly about President Trump and kind of the success he's having in the US right now. So what are your thoughts on basically the tariffs issue we've basically been seeing with the US?
I'm supportive. Look, we're talking about this, I'm sure, in the Q&A. Always look at the end result with Trump, because the process can sometimes drive people mad and a little crazy, and the up and down. But like in the first term, everyone was very critical of his Middle East policy. And then we got the Abraham Accords, which was an incredible accomplishment of peace between Israel and the Emiratis and the Saudis. And so there's a process that you have to allow unfold here. As far as the tariffs brought a lot of countries to the table. You guys got actually a pretty good deal out of this. President Trump was generous enough to actually exempt Rolls-Royce and some of your major manufacturing in the latest bilateral trade deal with the United States. And I want to see our 2 countries grow closer together. And I think the president has the same wish. But all the tariffs are eventually pointing at what we should. And this is the question for Europe, and this is the question for the United Kingdom. Will Europe and the United Kingdom decide to embrace the West, or will it look very, very far to the East? The rising power struggle in front of us is all the things we've talked about, but it really is the Chinese Communist Party versus Western values. The Chinese Communist Party is antithetical to even those of you that are liberal in this audience right now, is antithetical to what you believe and how you believe it. The CCP is the greatest threat to so many of these different things on the planet. And as it is this rising power, we have to reckon with this question. Are we okay as America? I don't know if that's the case here in the UK. Are we okay with not making any of our own vitamin C, none of our own antibiotics, none of our own critical pharmaceuticals? We do not make our own drone materials. In fact, we are supposed to make 4 submarines a year. We only make 2 submarines a year because we have to get the parts from China. And so I think there is a vassal state problem that is presenting itself in the West, where we have grown addicted to cheap products. And the Chinese, they do manufacturing very well. And you are underestimating the Chinese if you think it's just that it's cheap labor. They're very organized. They're very industrious. They take manufacturing seriously. Being the head of a manufacturing plant in China is like being a mayor of a small town. You have power, you have prestige, you have honor. You can call the local governor at any time. They prioritized it, and they knew that this was a way that they could enter into the global market. So tariffs are in some ways a very, let's say,
welcome to the show. Honor to be with you. Just joining back in. There's a couple of things that I want to share with you because of some things that have just been on my mind. And We are looking at a couple of things that I want to show you. This is not pre-recorded. We just did a whole big live show concerning Spain and the migrants that flooded into Spain. But I want to look at what's happening in Israel because of something that sparked my interest just about a month ago when Marco Rubio was asked about this specific question concerning the Jordanian custodialship over the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And I'm trying to find out where this is. I believe it's in this video. And I appreciate your guys' chats. You guys are keeping up the keeping up with the conversation and all that. So let's the conversation surrounding the Third Temple is one that has really intrigued a lot of folks here. And just a couple of clips that I want to play here for you. This was asked by this secretary, Chris Van Hollen, Senator Chris Van Hollen. He was asked about the U.S. and Israel working together to strip Jordan of its rights over the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Somebody said, what is it about Israel that scares the left so badly? Well, they believe that Israel controls everything, essentially. That they control everything. In America, they're controlled, over the top positions in power. They're controlling Hollywood. But we know that these scriptures concerning Israel, that I was talking about it with one of the other guys in the chat here. We're talking about Israel and the cursings that would come upon the nation of Israel if they forsook God. They would be scattered across the nations. They would not be accepted in said other nations. But not only that, would God bring them back from their land. Subscribe to the podcast. Email me your thoughts, freedom@glueyokeshow.com. This is a video that I want to make to post on my channel. Similar content, but this is what we're seeing.
Sponsor terrorism, suggesting they're ongoingly involved in that. My final question to you, Mr. Secretary, relates to the Al-Aqsa Mosque complex. There have been reports that the United States is working with Israel to take away the Kingdom of Jordan's custodianship over the Al-Aqsa Mosque complex in East Jerusalem. Can you confirm today that there's no...
Now, to clarify, the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Golden Dome are two separate. So the Golden Dome is not a mosque, okay? The mosque is the Al-Aqsa, which has the sort of dark bronze or blackish top of their mosque. That is their actual, that's the actual mosque that is near the Golden Dome. The Golden Dome is merely a spectacle for the Islamic faith. However, he's asking about this very specific question here, which this was back in June, actually, when he's asking about the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and it sparked a bunch of questions. Because we know that the Jews eventually want to bring back the Third Temple, and we know, according to Bible prophecy, that the Third Temple will rise eventually, where Israel will seek to build the Al-Aqsa. Yeah, I know he keeps calling it that. They'll seek to build the mosque. They'll seek to build the temple. But what's interesting about the report that this senator is he doesn't say the report, but I looked into it and I'm going to show you the report. This is from the Middle East Eye. What they want to supposedly turn this, instead of the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Golden Dome, which will probably be taken down if the Jordanian custodialship over this Temple Mount area is handed back over to Israel, or rather forcefully given back. I don't know how this would work out. And we were seeing what was close to happening when Iran was striking near the Temple Mount, which was kind of wild when we were seeing all of that go down. So let's play this. This is Marco Rubio's response.
Not even aware of those reports.
There are reports, so I was hoping you could
Is
confirm.
that like a media report or?
There have been several media reports.
Ah, well, you know the media is always accurate.
No, they're not, and that's why I'm getting.
Yeah, no, I've never even
So
heard
if
that. That's
you
the
could
first
just-
time I even hear anybody discuss that.
All right. Well, I'm glad to hear that, Mr.
But we have a
Thank you.
great relationship with Jordan, and we're very helpful. So I've just never heard that before.
Going on. So this is the next clip I'm going to play for you. This is one of the rabbis that these guys, these Israel guys, I don't listen to them much, but something piqued my interest that they said on this podcast that if they need the Ark of the Covenant, this is the Ark of the Covenant that would be residing in the temple, or since before the time of the temple, the first temple, the second temple, you would have the Ark of the Covenant being held in the tabernacle. And the tabernacle, or the Ark of the Covenant, was lost, or actually hidden away. This would have been hidden away during the time of Josiah. And there's this interesting clip here that I want to bring about because of archaeology that is being discovered in Israel concerning the Ark of the Covenant, and speculations as to where it could be. But the idea is that King Josiah actually hid it away because he saw the judgment that was coming to Israel. So he had the Levites carry it one last time. This is per 2 Chronicles. Carry it one last time and then hide it away. So when you look at what one of these archaeologists or these historians talk about, the list of the things that the Babylonians took, that King Nebuchadnezzar took away from the Israelites, they wrote a list of the things that they took, artifacts, all this stuff that they took from Israel. The Ark of the Covenant is not listed. And so let me play this clip here. Because we already know that sacrifices are happening. And let's go to this clip here. Okay.
Yeah, some people say no. Those that need to know where it's at.
Here we go. Let me go back a little.
Know where.
What is going on? What is that?
I've got a question for you, because this would be super, super interesting for our audience. Does Israel know where the Ark of the Covenant is?
Yes or no question.
And do you know? Because I've asked other people this, and some people say yes, some people say no.
Those that need to know where it's at, know where it's at.
That's a great answer.
Now, the Middle East Eye, where all of this is building up to. Well, before I get to the article, let me go to this clip here. This is from Eric Steckelbeck, who did some investigative journalism here. They talk about the biblical archaeology, and what is being uncovered in Israel is quite phenomenal, dating back to the time of Christ, dating back to, early churches, church history. Let's see what he talks about here concerning the Ark of the Covenant.
In the city of David, site of biblical Jerusalem, we are standing inside a cistern that would have held water, dating back some 2,500 years. First temple period, Jerusalem. But when you look at this cistern, there is one wall that is not covered in plaster, which seems to be a bit strange. If you look over here, you could see that one wall just does not fit in.
It looks like it was almost hastily put together.
That's right.
Like a rush job.
That's right. This wall is directly adjacent to the western wall of the Temple Mount. And one of the great mysteries for generations has been what happened to the Ark of the Covenant. The question is, when was it lost?
I'm still here, guys, by the way. My camera died. It's rebooting. One sec.
And for that story, we have to go back some 2,700 years to the time of the biblical King Hezekiah.
The prophet Isaiah.
That's right, prophet Isaiah.
First temple, Solomon's temple.
You have King Hezekiah, the prophet Isaiah. The kingdom of Israel has been exiled by the Assyrians, Sennacherib. And now Hezekiah is ruling the kingdom of Judah, and he knows that Jerusalem is next. The kingdom of Judah is next, and the Assyrians come to Jerusalem. and they surround the city.
And they were bloodthirsty. The Assyrians were fierce and brutal.
But the prophet Isaiah says, Hezekiah, don't worry. By the way the king of Sennacherib came, so shall he return. He will not enter Jerusalem. Not a single arrow will fall within the walls of Jerusalem. And the next morning, the entire Assyrian army is gone. Now,
how many?
You're talking well over 100,000, according to the Bible. And now Hezekiah's son, Manasseh, who was not like his father, he did not walk in the ways of the Lord. Biblical scholars believe the wicked King Manasseh, for his own reasons, prepares these subterranean hiding places around and beneath the Temple Mount.
Perhaps someplace like we're standing right now?
Absolutely. Biblical scholars believe it could be somewhere in this vicinity. Now, why is he so concerned about the Ark of the Covenant? It's not because he was a deeply religious person. He wasn't.
He was anything but.
Anything but. But he understood that the Ark of the Covenant, at least for him, represented a national treasure. And therefore, he has the same interest that perhaps the prophet Isaiah also does at the time when he prophesies that Jerusalem is going to fall, that he understood that at some point the temple treasures, the temple itself, it's not going to save Israel if they sin. And so Manasseh said, I'm going to come up with hiding places to hide away the Ark of the Covenant. A few generations go by, and now Josiah, the righteous King Josiah, is ruling. And he begins to see, so to speak, the writing on the wall. And he gets the feeling that it's time to hide away the Ark. And so what does he do? For one last time, there is a big national celebration of the Passover holiday. And so now we're reading from 2 Chronicles, chapter 35, verse 3, where Josiah says to the Levites who are consecrated to the Lord, who taught all of Israel, put the holy ark in the house that Solomon, son of David, king of Israel, built, as you no longer carry it on your shoulders. See now to the service of the Lord your God and his people Israel. So seemingly, Josiah is telling the Levites, that's it. You're going to carry the ark one last time, and then you're going to hide it away for it to be saved for some future time.
Josiah maybe saw or felt the gathering storm on the horizon in the form of the Babylonians.
That's right.
King Nebuchadnezzar leveled this place, leveled the first temple.
That's right. And so we have a clue from the Bible, because the Bible tells us that when Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, destroys Jerusalem, it actually lists the treasures from Jerusalem that are taken out of Jerusalem and into Babylon. And among those treasures, one thing is missing, and that is the Ark of the Covenant.
And look, we know in history, the Ark of the Covenant, that anytime it was in possession of anybody else other than the Levites, it would actually cause these, it would cause plagues, not only in the leaders, but of course the people, and it would kill them. And they would slowly deteriorate because they were in possession of the Ark of the Covenant. So what they had to do, one of the nations that were that had captured the Ark, they had to send it away by, I want to say cows, if I'm not mistaken, that the cows had to go in a certain direction. And they had to consult some people in order to do this effectively and correctly. But you're talking about the third temple here, the third temple that requires the Ark of the Covenant to be in the Holy of Holies. And when we look at the Middle East Eye and this report that came out saying the U.S. and Israel actively working to strip Jordan of Al-Aqsa custodianship, sources say, wow, the plan has sparked fears that Jordan's role in Jerusalem could be sidelined in favor of a new agreement aligned with Israeli interests. And so it goes on to repeat that they are actively working together to strip Jordan of its historic custodianship. U.S., Jordanian, and Palestinian officials, as well as Western and Gulf Arab sources, told the Middle East Eye that under the plan championed by President Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who has no official role in the administration, and the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, the authority of the Jordanian-backed Islamic Waqf would abruptly end, and a new body created by the Israeli government would declare the Al-Aqsa Mosque a multi-faith center, which we know that if this happens, this won't fare well for the Jews. Which, look, it already kind of is a multi-faith center. Jerusalem is a hot bed for not only for the incredible, the outbreaks that we've seen in the past and in more recently, with how this specific portion that is in control of the Jordanian Waqf is in a contentious spot. There are Christian churches, Islamic churches, and Jewish houses of worship. And I say Islamic churches, the mosques, Christian churches, Catholic churches, and of course, Jewish synagogues that are surrounding this site. And this is the most holiest site, the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And so why they would give it to Jordan in order to control this area, even though after they won the war, that's a big question to ask. But otherwise, it says, according to the officials, all of whom requested anonymity to discuss sensitive matters to the new arrangement, would grant Jews equal access to the Muslim site and formally allow large group Jewish prayer. Israel would also have a major say over the appointment of imams, preachers, and senior mosque officials. So this is interesting, right? Israel would have major say over the appointment of these imams, preachers, senior mosque officials, and would also be involved in signing off of the content mentioned in Friday's sermons. So if this is actually true, which is kind of wild, concerning the fact that they would approve of these said sermons, I think this wouldn't be favorable amongst the media if this began to explode, because they'll spin it in any way that they so choose to make Israel the bad guy here. Nonetheless, this is their land. They could do whatever they want with it, but it wouldn't fare well for the other religions per se. But what eventually we're going to find ourselves in we're going to see Israel putting itself in the position of doing is building this third temple. Now, the implication that is mentioned about this third temple is Jesus speaking here in the prophecy concerning the abomination of desolation. Not only Jesus, but Daniel the prophet. But Jesus says here, so when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, let me bring you to the scripture here so you can see it for yourself. He says, standing in the holy place, let the reader understand that those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. This is concerning the Jews and the Jews only, right? The Jews are here. And Judea, that is would be Judea, Samaria, or also known as the West Bank. But Judea and Samaria is accurate, right? So it says, let the one who is on the housetop not go down to take what is in his house, and let the one who is in the field not turn back to his cloak. What's interesting is, let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. That implies that maybe Israel has control again over the West Bank, that just like they're doing in Gaza will also be done in the West Bank. I'm just thinking about that. Whether they officially have removed or matter of fact, the Palestinian Authority that is in that area, that region, Judea, Samaria, what if they move their operations over to, because that's what they mentioned in this agreement, that they want to bring they want Palestinians, they want I think it's the PLA or PLO, that they are going to have them some type of government system, something like that in Gaza instead of Hamas. What if they just move over there to Gaza? And then now they're again in control of Judea, Samaria. They're in control of the Temple Mount area. Purely speculation. But this implies that there is Jews living in Judea and Samaria. Okay, let the one who is in Judea Flee to the mountains, let the one who is on the housetop not go down and take what is in his house, and let the one who is in the field not turn back and take his cloak. And at last, for women who are pregnant and those who are nursing infants in those days, pray that your flight or escape may not be in the winter or on the Sabbath. For then there will be great tribulation, such as has not been from the beginning of the world until now, no, and never will be. And if those days had not been cut short, no human being would be saved, but for the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. This is all so fascinating when we're looking at these stories and this article that was recent. No flesh would have been saved if God does not intervene. If God does not intervene in this moment, and people that say that we've already, the Christians that say we're in the Great Tribulation, which is ridiculous because this is not really, we're not really witnessing the greatest tribulation that, the world has ever seen. This is like, I think all nations would feel it, not just one particular nation. But because the book of Revelation and what is spoken of concerning the nation of Israel, but also the rest of the nations, is that God's wrath and judgment is upon everybody else because they wanted to believe in the deception. You say, and to the Jewish people who are trying to raise the temple, it's just going to be crushed. I mean, read the Bible. You're better off being to be an atheist than to any religion that denies Jesus. Look, during this time, during the Great Tribulation, God will turn he will turn back to the Jews. We know per Deuteronomy, per Leviticus, that God, when he says that if you do not follow my commands, you will be scattered. A lot of curses come upon the nation, but they will be scattered amongst the nations, where they will not be accepted in those nations. It's prophesied. And the prophecy is true, that the Jews, anywhere they are, they're not welcomed or accepted. And even so, the foreigner will trample over them. The foreigner will have sort of power over them. And this is what God had warned them. If they forsook their God, this is what would happen to them. But he says in Ezekiel that they will return to the land, never to be uprooted from the land again. And so when you talk about the Jews who will eventually return to the land, you see what happens in Ezekiel 38, the Ezekiel 39 war, essentially, where God is then proclaimed, or rather recognized by Israel, and his name is glorified amongst the nations. Meaning that this act will be recognized that this is God saving or coming to the salvation of Israel, because he saves them from these these group of companies that will go up against Israel, the land of that are dwelling safely, a land of unwalled villages. So there has to be a moment in time where Israel is at a false sense of peace, where eventually that we'll see these nations that will come against Israel and they will go and attack Israel. That is Gog from the land of Magog, from the uttermost parts of the north. If you go from Jerusalem upwards to the uttermost parts, and God bless you, thank you, Joey, appreciate your wonderful gift. To the uttermost parts of the north, you see that the furthest part you hit Moscow, you hit Russia. There's no nation further than Russia. The othermost parts of the north, and that is what it talks about there. And you say, what is God's name? I want to answer that really quick. God's name is I am. I am that I am. It's the most powerful statement, because if you look at other people that you can ask them what the name of their God is, they'll try to say Allah, they'll try to say Buddha, I don't know, you name it. The 300 gods and the isms, the Sikhism, Buddhism, all that. They'll try to tell you what God it is. There's a God for everything. The only God that is the one true God, that is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, his name is I am. And so you see even Jesus mentioning that he says, before Abraham was, I am. It's the same language that is used there, ego eimi, that is I am. You say it's Yahweh, but it's not your way, it's Yahweh. Yes, Yahweh, Jehovah Jireh. There is Yod He Vav He, that the way that is obviously that they would pronounce it, or they would read past it, right? They didn't want to write the name, the holy name of God, but the consonants. And again, thank you so much for your wonderful gift. You say that thank you for the work that I'm doing. Appreciate that. But this is what must be shown here, because you see the days in which we're living in. That if anyone says to you, look, here is the Christ, or there he is, do not believe it. We also saw reports of somebody creating AI videos of the previous mayor of New York, that is Eric Adams, who was, somebody made an AI video of him saying that he was Jesus Christ. Yeah. Look, I don't think anybody fell for that. And if they did, well, look, it's going to increase more and more. But the scriptures there, Jesus says it himself, right? They're for false Christs. And again, Christ means Messiah. Anointed ones, false prophets will arise and perform great signs and wonders so as to lead astray, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you beforehand. This is the warning here. I've told you beforehand so that you also would believe. So if they say to you, look, he is in the wilderness, do not go and look. I saw videos on social media of people, I don't know where they were, but they were all standing in a forest looking up and saying that they're seeing Jesus, that they're all somehow seeing Jesus in the sky. But what does it say here? Look, if they say to you, look, he's in the wilderness, do not go out. If they say, look, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. For as the lightning comes from the east and shines as far as the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever the corpse is, there the vultures will gather. Immediately after tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light. We're seeing all these signs in the heavens. If you go to Luke 19, you see that Jesus references, because it's not here in Matthew, and it's not to say that, which gospel is true. They're both giving an account that is going to complete what Jesus is saying, but he talks about pestilence here. The pestilence that will happen in the last days. What are we seeing in not only just in America, but across other nations? Pestilence. The fact that we're seeing, these recalls from all these types of foods, and salmonella and cyclospora. We're seeing diseases like Ebola outbreaks. We're seeing much, much more COVID numbers reaching or growing rather. We're seeing so much taking place. Jesus said it would happen. Famine will begin to come upon the lands. These are just the birth pains. That's what he says. Like, don't be alarmed. This is going to happen, but I told you beforehand. I'm looking for it. Nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, earthquakes. And remember, we saw these earthquakes also. Now, let me see if I can find this. Bunch of earthquakes, tons and tons of earthquakes that we saw. Known as the Ring of Fire. What was being reported, and let me see if I can pull this post up for you that showed how many new. Japan just hit a 7.2 earthquake, something deadly. And again, it's just getting worse. We're seeing earthquakes in various places. We saw the earthquake in Venezuela. That was a huge 7.3 magnitude. Tsunami alerts that were issued even to California, that we saw some of that happening. Here's the Ring of Fire. This is from, let me see if I can actually pull this up into a bigger screen. This is, what was being reported here. Okay. This is 2 weeks ago. This is just 2 weeks ago, mind you. So 6.4, Papua New Guinea, Loyalty Islands, Philippines, Peru, Vanuatu. I don't even know how to pronounce that. You're seeing all these types of earthquakes, and then you're also hearing reports of the big one in California happening. The big one. When's the big one going to happen? We don't know. The San Andreas Fault, they said that the pressure is so high that we're likely to see an earthquake, and that the results of that earthquake could be absolutely catastrophic. We're seeing sludge, sewage, first known contagious cancer detected among brown bullhead catfish. We're looking at what is happening in these the vile disease that seems that sees flies lays eggs in humans could ravage LA in the wake of warehouse fire. The food shortages that we're seeing. Rare flesh-eating bacteria claims first fatality in Palm Beach County. Arizona confirms first case of deadlier Mpox strain. Does this fall in line with famines, pestilence, diseases, earthquakes? Look at this, a biblical disease back in with a vengeance in Florida. Experts warn which animal is to blame. Rising number of ancient disease. 9-banded armadillos are common sight across southern U.S. Experts say that the adorable armored creatures may be the culprit behind a rising number of cases of an ancient disease. Like not to to spark fear, but again, you're going back to what we're seeing in Spain. Nations against nations, ethnos, or really the word is ethnicities. Jesus forewarns of these wars and persecution. We're seeing an increase in the talk of wars. These are just the beginning of sorrows. But doesn't mean you're going to escape some of these trials. However, I do strongly believe in the doctrine of the rapture, that it will be in a pre-tribulational rapture because of what the scriptures say concerning this. I just thought I'd share that with you. You say, why do you think they named Jesus Emmanuel? Just one of the many names of who Jesus is to be. Emmanuel, God with us. You see the other titles there in the scripture, in Isaiah. Government will rest on his shoulders. And you look at the further examples here. In Isaiah 7, it's actually pronounced with an I, by the way, Emmanuel. And the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. Butter and honey shall he eat, that he may know to refuse evil, and shall choose the good. For before the child shall know to refuse evil and choose the good, the land of that let's see here. The land whose those kings you will dread will be deserted. The Lord will bring you upon your. I think it's later in 9 when it talks about. Let me see here, chapter 9, about his. The government will rest on his shoulders. It gives those other attributes as to who this Emmanuel character is, which is, we find that to be Jesus the Christ. because he's also called the everlasting Father. The righteous branch, or it might be chapter 11, I'm sorry. The righteous reign of the branch. There shall come forth a shoot from the stump of Jesse, and a branch from his roots shall bear fruit, and the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him. The Spirit of understanding. This is the 7 spirits of God, by the way. Spirit of wisdom and understanding, Spirit of counsel and might, Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord, and his delight shall be in the fear of the Lord. Okay. He shall not judge by what his eyes see, or decide disputes by what his ears hear, but with righteousness he shall judge the poor and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. He shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he shall kill the wicked. Righteousness shall be the belt of his waist, and faithfulness the belt of his loins. I'm looking for for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, the government will be upon his shoulder. And his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. These are very key terms. The Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace, the Mighty God. And people don't connect this. They say, well, how could Jesus be God? This doesn't make any sense. But the prophecy that was there, that was concerning this person, specific person, this is what he is. Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end upon the throne of David, upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice, from henceforth, ever, forever, even forever, rather. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this, and it will continue on there. So there's plenty of examples of Jesus in the Old Testament, and some people will argue, well, you're just reading Jesus you're just inserting Jesus in there. Well, Jesus was the one who fulfilled these exact passages. Look at Zechariah, look at Daniel, look at here in Isaiah, even beyond Isaiah 9, you see Isaiah 53, all the way through the end to 66. Wonderful examples of how detailed this God is concerning his scripture when he talks about the prophecy concerning Christ. Even Joshua, who talks about, are you for us or are you against us? And he's speaking to an angel of the Lord, and he says, neither. He's not with humanity. He's not taking sides. The only side he's on is on the side of his righteousness. It's so funny, by the way, this conversation of, and I got to look more into what people are beginning to say, like these aren't old, or these aren't new theories. People say that, Europe and the Rothschild banking family, like these secret societies are how Christian Zionism. And a lot of these folks, you have to remember that a lot of these folks are Jewish. And I think a lot of people, when they begin to find out that these, billionaires, these people in authority like Bernie Sanders, like George Soros, all these people are Jewish. And you see what they are. They're at the top of, the high elite status in Hollywood, in America, in all these other, scenarios that they say the Jews control the world. Look at what has happened, that the Jews had to and a lot of people don't take into the context what happened during the Holocaust and what happened in history concerning the Jewish people, that God would save, he would spare a remnant of people to bring back to his land. And it wasn't going to be a lot of people, but if you consider the fact that if the Jews left Egypt to the tune of 2 million people that left Egypt, I think the number is 2 million. How much Jews would be alive today if it continued on from that and didn't continue to get killed because of how the nation went? God warned them how they were to turn. or that they would continue to, that if they continue to put God, keep God as their God, that they would be in the billions. So you talk about, you say this is the Bible that was spread around America in the early 1900s, financed by the Rothschild. You have to remember that during the Crusades, during these times, I guess I would say Crusades even after the fact, or, you know, like we talk about that the scriptures were held in only within authority positions, like popes, you know, bishops, kings, queens, and the literacy concerning the scriptures, because of the scriptures being written in Greek and Hebrew, and people that had limited knowledge about this, limited knowledge meaning limited knowledge on how to speak these languages, that the control was under these, certain leaders in power. They were able to manipulate people and just say that they're doing things on behalf of God, or that this is God's will here. But when you see that when printing exploded to where we get our modern day Bible, have a physical copy of your scriptures, have a physical copy on you, because we're witnessing what is modern day book burning. And what is being referenced nowadays is the Fahrenheit 451, which I think it's funny because this goes back to what was happening when at the start of AI. What they're now doing with AI, and we're going to cover this on the broadcast, but what they're doing is they're buying rare books and documents, and they're shaving off the book ends, and they're scanning these pages in massive amount of numbers so they could destroy the originals. You see, the folks always push back and looking for an out. The fact whether they believe Christ is risen. I mean, it's a hard issue. That's really what it is. You say, keep God as their God. Is there any other? There is no other. God is so confident, because obviously he created humanity. He knows what they are capable of doing, that they will create gods of their own, gods that they can create and that they can control. God says, what does your God do? Your God has eyes, but it cannot see, has ears, but it cannot hear. These are the carved idols. They have not known nor understood. I'm trying to find it here. This is somewhere in Isaiah. Anyway, nonetheless, you see the Psalms repeats this. Their idols are silver and gold, the work of men's hands. They have mouths, but they speak not. They have eyes, but they see not. They have ears, but they hear not. Noses, but they smell not. They have hands, but they handle not. They have feet, but they walk not. Neither do they see, neither speak they through their throats, that they make them like unto them. They make their idols like themselves. And this is what they bow down to. They bow down to these idols of silver and gold, or they bow down to these wooden idols. God warns them of this. And even with the Balaam story, where they were trying to figure out ways to curse Israel, and the only way they were able to do that was, of course, by causing them to turn from their gods, by using women to do that. And I'm not bashing women here. I'm just saying this is how they were able to infiltrate the Israelites, by putting seductive women in front of them, putting them in their camps, and so on and so forth. The women caused the Israelites to turn away from their gods by worshiping other gods. Somebody said the Bible is a translation. You have what's known as a translation and a transliteration from the original meaning of the text versus the literal word for word translation. There's two differences as to how it is communicated, but they will always go back to the source text, which is Greek and Hebrew and Aramaic. So it's not a translation of 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 a translation. That's not what it is. Of course, we have what used to be spoken, which was King James and Elizabeth English back in the 1900s, which is no longer spoken today. This is why you see the King James Version is not really as popular because of how difficult it is to read, even in its current form, even though they modernized it quite a bit. It's not translating a translation. It's going back to the source text and how they can properly translate it to words that we are using today. All right, guys. Thanks so much for being here. God bless you. Thanks for the folks that are still sticking in. And if you're sitting here on the West Coast or on the East Coast, it is 1:43 a.m. It might be late where you are if you're on the East Coast. God bless you. You say, are you listening to 9 Inch Nails? Are you asking me or somebody else? I don't know. Yes, King James is Old English, 100%. So, yeah, so you have, I think, good translations. I mean, it really just got to be discernful as to, you just got to be discernful. Joey, thank you so much. God bless you. Good night. And God bless all of you for being in this chat. And I hope you guys enjoyed this chat about the scriptures, because we're witnessing archaeology and history is really unfolding. And thanks so much for your sub. Appreciate it, Coyote. God bless you. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. Good night, Jonah. Thank you so much. KJV over here. I use ESV. I think I use it to read. When I'm reading to an audience or to people, I don't preach. I'm not a pastor, but if I'm reading amongst friends, if I'm reading with family, then I'll use ESV. Say you've got a great voice for reading the Bible. Keeps it chill. Appreciate it. Thanks. Just do a whole reading starting from Genesis all the way to the book of Revelation. How about that? Then he said to them, nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be great earthquakes in various places, famines and pestilence, and there will be terrors and great signs from heaven. But before all of this, they will lay their hands on you. Not their heads, but they'll lay their hands on you. They'll prosecute you. Let's do this in a voice. How we'll do this in a godly voice. I wouldn't even be able to.
This is voice disguise, though. This is like voice disguise. And there will be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars, and on the earth distress of nations and perplexity.
Is that just playing around with my... It's 1 o'clock, guys. Come on. Have a little fun. This is the scriptures. And the scriptures, they may soon be censored. Because if you keep talking about the scriptures, you might be censored. Straight up. Now, this is for... I'm actually being a little for real there. What is this one? No, I'm not even press that. I don't know what that is. And there will be signs. And he told them a parable. He said,
look at the fig tree and all the trees. As soon as they come out and leave.
That's a wrong one. Sorry, guys. All right. Sounds like an autistic Satan voice. Sounds like the voices they would use to portray Satan in a movie. Anyway, yeah. I want to read the scriptures more on this show, on this channel. This is honestly, the purpose of this show is to help you to think biblically about our politics, about our world, about how we are to shape these politics. So I'll go back to the one passage, and this is in Jeremiah 29:7. This is what I was mentioning earlier. Jeremiah 20. I can't even say goodbye to you guys. You guys are awesome. Jeremiah 29:7. But seek the welfare. Now, context here is to the Jews, but this is very much applicable to anybody who seeks to read this and apply it to their own nation, because we see the benefits of putting God first in their nation. But seek the welfare of the city in which I have sent you into exile or captivity, and pray to the Lord on its behalf, for in its welfare you will find your welfare. This is very key, but demand the welfare in which you are living, for on its behalf, for in its welfare you will find your welfare. New Testament, Paul talks about the praying, interceding for your leaders. Daniel chapter 2, we see that God is the one who changes the times and the seasons. Remember, Daniel was reading from the prophecies of Jeremiah, but here, Daniel chapter 2, it is God who changes times and seasons, removes kings, sets up kings, gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep and hidden things, and he knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. Also, Jeremiah 31, 35, very important concerning Israel. Thus says the Lord, who gives the sun for light by day and the fixed order of the moon and the stars for light by night, who stirs up the heavens, stirs up the sea, and its waves roar. The Lord of hosts is his name. If this fixed order departs from before me, declares the Lord, then the offspring of Israel will cease from being a nation from me before me forever. If the heavens above can be measured and the foundations of the earth below can be explored, which we know it can't, then I will cast off the offspring of Israel for all they have done, declares the Lord. For the people, for the Islamists, for Iran and the IRGC, when they want to get rid of Israel, they need to either explore the foundations of the earth below or the heavens above. If they can be measured, they should measure the heavens above. Or if they can remove the fixed order of the moon, the stars, and the lights by night, then God will cast off the offspring of Israel, and it will cease from being a nation from before him forever. Good morning. Frost, you say, morning, brother. Wish nothing but the best for you today. Appreciate it. God bless you guys. Wish nothing but the best for you. Say, what about the tree that Jesus cursed? I'm wondering about that. That would have been in Luke 19. What was it? Or maybe in Matthew. Let me go to Matthew. Might have been Matthew. Could have also been in Luke. I think it was in Luke. What was I reading from a moment ago? I'm just trying to figure that out. Oh, here we go. I think it was here. Lesson of the fig tree. Look at the fig tree and all of the trees as soon as they come out. Let me make sure I'm right about that question. What about the tree that Jesus cursed? Maybe it wasn't that I was just reading this. I think it's because I saw that what I was reading, but the curse that he curses the tree, he explains it to his disciples. see if I can find it. Mark tells us Now they passed in the morning and they saw the fig tree withered away by its roots. So he did that prior. On the following day when they came, so this is about the bearing, the fig tree not bearing fruit. Because this is, he'll explain it later, right? But he says here, Jesus was hungry. He saw a fig tree from the distance. And he went to see if he could find anything on it, any figs, because when you see that it looks like it should be bearing fruit, when he went to it, because of the leaves and the plant sprouting, he found nothing. For it was not the season for figs. He found nothing but leaves. So it was deceptive in the fact that it looked like it was bearing fruit, but it did not bear fruit. And he said to it, "May no one ever eat fruit from you again." And that was the curse on the fig tree. It says here, as they passed in the morning, they saw the fig tree withered away by its roots. Peter remembered and said to him, "Rabbi, look, the fig tree that you cursed was withered." And Jesus answered, "Have faith in God. Truly I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, be taken up and thrown into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, and believes that what he says will come to pass, it will be done for him. Therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. And whenever you stand praying, forgive if you have anything against anyone, so that your Father also, who is in heaven, may forgive you your trespasses." Now, the context to this passage, or what he's saying here based on what he has already spoken to his disciples on, about prayer, about seeking first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, that is Matthew 6:33, seeking first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all things will be added unto you. This is not a name it and claim it type of prayer. This is not a believe it enough and you'll receive it. This involves faith. And when we're talking about Jesus saying, whoever says to this mountain, be taken up and thrown into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, we look at also passages concerning faith, concerning wisdom, concerning what James says in, and I hope I can bring this into better picture for you, what James says in his book concerning wisdom. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given him. But let him ask in faith, with no doubting. For the one who doubts is like a wave of sea. Wave of sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. For that person must not suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. So this is about faith. And I think a lot of people like to bring about this discussion of, well, you don't have enough faith, and that's why certain things aren't done. We have to understand that when we're asking the Lord in prayer about anything, it must be according to his will. And if you ever want to be safe about how to pray to God according to his will, that would be according to his scripture. Because you look in Hebrews, I hope I'm not jumping around too much to where it's confusing you, but I hope I'm bringing it all into the one vine that we're ultimately trying to bring this in. And Hebrews explains it in this manner. When you're talking about who Jesus is, that long ago at many times and in many ways, God spoke to our fathers by the prophets, but in those last days, he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed the heir of all things, through whom he also created the world. And so this is Christ is the last one to speak on behalf of all the prophets that have spoken in times past. But in these last days, he's spoken to us by his Son. So when we're talking about faith and prayer and such, we're praying to the Lord. Jesus is our intermediary. He is the ladder that we are to, that we have this access to God, that we can go boldly to his throne of grace, as it says in Scripture, that when we pray to the Lord, we pray in faith, and without, as James says, without doubting, which is a very hard thing for humans to do, because when we begin to, we're so easy and so quick to doubt that, oh, well, if God can do it for me, or if God wants to do it for me. If you pray the scriptures, you say, Lord, your scriptures say this, and you pray those scriptures over, you know that it's in the will of the Lord. Now, of course, we're talking about also prayers concerning life. God's scripture has an answer for everything that we go through, concerning death, concerning life, concerning finances, concerning everything. We are to seek God's word for counsel and pray according to what his counsel says. So if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously without reproach, and will be given to him. But let him ask in faith with no doubting. For the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. For that person must not suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in his ways. And so when you're talking about the lesson there in the fig tree, Mark 11, I'm trying to find it. Obviously, people bring in applications, they bring in applications about, like, don't be the Christian. It's very, I don't know, maybe a lukewarm message. I'm not really a fan of that, but, the Christian that doesn't bear fruit, right? It looks like he's bearing fruit. And I think this is a very strong application. A very strong application of a Christian who, and the scriptures also back this up. So I can't just like completely bash that point, but Christians can look like they're bearing fruit, or they can seemingly be outwardly appearing to be a Christian. I'm trying to find the passage on that is Paul speaking, and I want to say in Romans, if not Galatians, if not, let me think. I agree with you, Jonah, by the way. You say you can sum up everything about the world and society reading Genesis 1 through 11. If I'm not mistaken, Charlie Kirk had mentioned that speaking at Jack Hibbs' church specifically. We're talking about Jesus gives examples of this all the time as well. The people who are followers of Christ, when they're following him and he tells them to eat his flesh, to drink his blood, they freak out. It was a hard saying. And a lot of his disciples left. And really who were left were Peter and the disciples. And they say, where else do we go? You're the one that has the everlasting truth. But the Christian, I'm trying to find it. Even those who say to Jesus, Lord, Lord. Haven't we prophesied in your name? Haven't we done many good things in your name? And he says, depart from me, I never knew you. This is also a very important scripture. Can't think of the scripture right now. Titus could be a good example. Titus 1:16. Look, 1 Thessalonians through Titus, really good concerning the end times, if you guys want to read those. verses, scriptures. They profess to know God, but they deny him by their works. They are detestable and disobedient, unfit for any good work. That's one of them, and I think it might be Peter is the other one I'm thinking of, if I'm not mistaken. First or second Peter, I'm trying to think. This is when Peter's talking about the fact that people say, where is the coming of, where is the coming that, here we go, be subject. Let me see. I'm just thinking through this stuff. I'm sorry if you guys are kind of getting bored here, but second Peter it might be. Where is the promise of his coming? For ever since the fathers fell asleep, all things are continuing as they were from the beginning of creation. For they deliberately overlooked this fact that heavens existed long ago, and the earth was formed out of water and through water by the word of God, and by means of these the world that then existed was deluged in water and perished. But by the same word, the heavens and the earth now exist, are stored up for fire, being kept until the day of judgment and destruction of the ungodly. But do not overlook this fact that that's not it. But anyway, it's a good passage nonetheless. But I think it might be close to Titus 1:16, similar to that they profess to know God, but their acts do not show it. You'll know man by his fruits, 100%. Matthew 7:22. Let's see it. 7:22. Yeah. I think this is one of them. This is a scripture I think a lot of people might have in my notes. A lot of people are weary about this one because of what Jesus says. Like, well, for Christians, seemingly to be Christians, we should be acting like Christians. And how could we ever be in the position to where Jesus says that, he never knew us? I'm trying to think. Just looking through my notes. Sorry, guys. Super late. Yeah, I have so many notes, but anyway, I can't seem to put it into perspective or into what I'm trying to look for. Anyway, despite that, I think one sec. Let me see. One sec. got some more notes. Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it. There is a specific passage I'm still looking for, but I don't know. I can't. It's like on the tip of my tongue, but I don't even know how it starts. That's the weird thing about that. Anyway, nonetheless, we're talking about the passage there concerning the Christian. And I think a lot of good people that, a lot of good pastors, a lot of good, people that are excellent on the matter. Chuck Smith, Chuck Missler, I've been mentioning him, played him earlier in the clips, Jack Hibbs, Frank Turek, Dr. Frank Turek. We have others like Erwin Lutzer, Dr. Erwin Lutzer. He's a good one. Plenty of other people. James Cadiz. Yeah. Anyway, hope that helped. You have proved all your Jesus cult is low. Shame on all of you. Interesting. Oh, wow. You met Chuck. That's amazing. When I found out about Chuck, he was already dead. And that was pretty sad. Because, you find out about somebody even by the name of Vodi Bachman. He was always, in my YouTube feed when he was alive. He recently passed, but he was always in my YouTube feed. He'd pop up here and there, and I watched one recently. He's talking about the love of the world, going through the book of John. There's another one that he did on Ephesians, really good, on a breakdown on Ephesians, but tons of other people. But that's so cool that you met Chuck Smith. I mean, not to idolize the man, but he's just a very good teacher. I actually started doing the classes at one point at not at Calvary Chapel in Costa Mesa. That's where his church is, but Bible College, and they had us looking or listening to Chuck Smith's C2000 series, and he goes through it's a verse by verse. Through the Bible, C2000 series. If you want to go through it by yourself, really good, really in depth. And I'll put the link if you guys want to do that on your own. And it takes you through literally every single book of the Bible in depth. And this is what we had to do for the Bible class, Bible College. And yeah, quite incredible stuff. Yeah. All right, guys. I know it's so late, especially probably for you. Well, whoever's on the East Coast, probably late for you guys. God bless you. Thanks so much for joining me. And I look forward to more of these chats when we talk about scripture. Seth Gruber is really great, actually. He was really, really good. Is that what he is next to your profile pic? I didn't even notice. I can't see it. It's really tiny, obviously, on my screen, but it's funny. Yeah, that is you. That's awesome. That's awesome. Seth Gruber, really excellent, especially with his White Rose Resistance. When he's talking about the 1916 project, 1916, Margaret Sanger. Excellent, excellent. All right, guys. Well, I'll see you in the next one. God bless you.